I will now declare this 6th of June meeting of Te Puna Kōrero open. Welcome everybody, and that's both to councillors, staff and to members of the public, including our ratepayers. Okay, so I'd like to start with a karakia, and Taku, can I ask you to lead us in this, please? Yeah. Thank you very much. We'll now move to item 2 on the agenda, which is apologies. We don't have any apologies aside from just noting that Councillor Johnson has a leave of absence for this meeting, and we don't need to move or second her. That moves us to item 3 on the agenda, which is public forum, and we have 6 speakers or groups in public forum. Now, I just want to make clear that understanding order 15.1, speakers will be able to speak for 5 minutes, and a bell will ring at 4 minutes and 5 minutes. So if you want possible questions from councillors, then it's the first bell. And no questions can be asked of officers as part of this public forum. Okay, so let's move to our, and we're going to have to shuffle seats around again now. Move to our first speaker, which is Graham Ebbett from Titahi Bay Residents Association. This is where it gets complicated, Liz. Oh, good. That's called self-regulation. Okay. So, Graham, you know the drill. Your 5 minutes starts now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my name's Graham Ebbett. I'm the chairman of Titahi Bay Residents Association. Personally, I've run an industrial automation and control systems business for the past 50 years. I'm a registered engineering associate, fellow of the erstwhile Institute of Measurement and Control New Zealand, long-term Wellington branch chair and representative on the National Council. In January this year, I made an Official Information Act request to Porirua City Council, RE, the removal of the flow meter in the main sewage line out of Titahi Bay to the sewage plant. That runs under the walkway behind the boat sheds at the south end of the beach. The request was passed on to Wellington Water Limited and delayed. Finally, we received the answers and presented them to the Porirua Wellington Joint Venture Committee last week. The flow meter had ceased operation in August last year, and the last peak flow measured had been 168 litres per second. But in response to questioning, Wellington Water disclosed that the maximum pump capacity up to the treatment plant was only 140 litres per second. That meant 28 litres per second was overflowing down the sewage outfall out into the bay. Wellington Water admitted that the discharge of the raw sewage is non-compliant under the Resource Management Act. I see the covert work by engineers to deliberately design a system in breach of the law as unethical. And removal of the flow meter is a cover-up. In 1987, the purpose of the new sewage treatment plant, with its replacement main line direct from Takapuahia, was to stop pollution at Titahi Bay outfall. There was to be no more city or cross-harbour northern suburb flow via Titahi Bay. The apparent reintroduction of the Tite Bay Loop, now taking overflow from Takapawahia, is a huge backward step and something our council should not be allowing to happen. The Takapawahia pump station receives all the porosity waste, plus everything from the growing catchment subdivisions of Johnsonville and Tawa. Removal of the bay flow meter takes away the ability to monitor those changes. Reinstatement does not allow some people to blindly write off any increases as just a stormwater overflow. We must have the flow meter reinstated. Peak flow readings regularly available on the website. An immediate initiation of an upgrade of the pump from the bay line to the treatment plant. That's an absolute necessity as far as we're concerned. Any questions for that?
Thank you, Graham. Any questions? We have a question from Councillor Philo.
Hey, thank you for coming in, Graham. Just want to clarify your point around the flow meter. So is what you're saying, the flow meter recorded the flow rate of wastewater from Tite Bay? So along that line, it recorded that, and it recorded it on whatever date at 168 litres. Now it's gone?
Yeah.
Is what you're saying? It's
Yeah.
gone now. So do you think this meter, because we've been told that the flow meter, that volume isn't measured in discharge. So when discharge from the pump station goes out into the ocean, we're told they can't give a volume. So would this flow meter possibly allow for that measurement of volume, do you think?
Yes, we would know how much was going from Tite Bay, and we would know that it could only have a maximum of 140 litres per second go up to the pump station, so we would know the flow, and they would be able to monitor also for how long with the flow meter.
So for how long and for how much?
We'd be able to work out a volume then of what's going out into the bay.
And what was the reason they said they took the meter away?
Oh, I forget the reasoning was something like rationalisation of the system or words to that effect. No, it was.
Sorry, the gallery may not comment. Thank you. Is that your question? We have time for one more well, we don't have time for a question. Given that is it going to be short, Councillor Ford?
Question. It's more of a clarification because
Okay.
Councillor Philo had asked about the
Okay,
reason.
where you go.
So I just want to know from staff if we can get a definitive reason for why the flow meter was removed through the chair.
I don't know the answer to that. Mike might know.
Sorry, we can't, as I said right at the start, we can't ask questions
It's
of
my understanding that
staff as part of the public forum.
it's my understanding that they can't, but we can.
I'm taking advice. No, apparently not. You may ask that later, and when we get to item 7.2. Okay. Thank you, Graham. Let's now move to Michelle.
Let's all move. It's still on.
Gorski and Paula Burney. Yeah, you're both there.
Jack, I've just got some copies here.
So, is it?
Before I start, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody who came, and you can see how passionate we all are about this. And just, children, would you like to stand up quickly, and so all the councillors can see you. And I just want to say thank you to Matt for their teacher for bringing them down. So thank you so much for coming. Because why we're here is for the future and for these people here. Thanks so much, guys.
Okay. Are you ready to start, Michelle? Okay.
And thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak today. And councillors, thank you too. And my name is Michelle Wachowski. I am a member and very proud member of being of Titahi Bay Residents Association and an ocean swimmer. I swim every day, all year round in the bay. I have arthritis, so the cold water helps my arthritis. And but I have to avoid the ocean when it rains because it makes me sick. But I also get sick on days that don't rain because the ocean is constantly polluted with untreated wastewater, overflowing from Vella Street and Rukatani pump stations, you can see here, and that are not capable of pumping their daily peak flow to the treatment plant. These pumps are so close to Titahi Bay shoreline, their discharge always comes in on an incoming tide. On Sunday, the 14th of April, I swam with the Titahi Bay Ocean Swimmers. It was a clear day and the sea looked great, but it wasn't. It was disgusting. I could taste it, feel it, smell it, and see it. The Rukatani pump station had been overflowing at around this time for about 23 hours. 23 hours of untreated sewage pumping into the ocean, 600 metres from Titahi Bay shoreline, and we swam in it. The week before, Saturday the 6th of April, the day of Kōrero Street Triathlon, and Sunday the 7th of April, the Grand Traverse, when hundreds of people were on the beach, the treatment plant bypassed and again bypassed on the 12th and 13th. The pump station were overflowing too, and that's a double hit of untreated sewage entering one of the most popular surfing, life-saving, fishing and recreational beaches north of Wellington. We only learned of the pump station overflow at a council wastewater meeting last week, where Mr Ebbott raised questions on the removal of the flow meter that has been used to monitor and collect data, and begs the question, why was it removed? Wellington Water said it was a rational decision to stop measuring the peak flow on the Rukatani pump station. No monitoring, no data, no risk to human health. And that was how the Porirua treatment plant consent got through. The Resource Management Act requires pump stations for treatment plants to be consented to discharge wastewater into the ocean. Rukatani Point and Vella Street pumps are not consented, nor have they been upgraded. The consenting process is underway for the pump stations. The data recorded in the assessments of effects, and you see this on the back page here, and go look it up, please read the reports, we read everything, shows Rukatani pump station overflowing the most of all the pump stations in the network, yet considered medium risk. Remember, no monitoring, no data, and authorities reporting no risk to human health. No member of the public would swim, fish, surf and immerse in Porirua Harbour. Tragically, years of local authority inaction has killed this paradise. Hundreds of people swim, fish, surf and immerse in the bay, but for how long? Will our grandchildren walk, our mokopuna walk on the edge of Titahi Bay as they do for Porirua Harbour and long for the beauty and health that once was? Councillors, please hear us. Be genuine to your long-term plan vision. Fund the upgrade of Vella Street and Rukatani pump stations, save the health of Titahi Bay and make the bay safe before it's too late. Thank you, and we request this presentation is included in the minutes. Kia ora, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Philo, I'll allow one question. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Mr Chair.
Yours is the first, so.
Oh, okay.
Bell.
Hey, I just wondered if you wouldn't mind, Michelle, just brief sharing how, like, you mentioned you got sick.
I did.
After you went swimming. What can you? If it's too personal, don't worry about it. But do you mind sharing, like, what kind of sick?
Oh,
that look
yeah,
like?
no, I get really bad diarrhea. It's really bad, and sometimes that can be with me for a long time, and I have to go to the doctor, and Yeah, it's not. I know it's down to the sea. There isn't anything else that's causing it, and we do try and be very careful to not swim in when it rains. But now, I mean, the messaging. I don't know where the messaging came from, but the messaging is don't go into the water 24 hours after it rains, and then it's 48 hours. And sometimes we think now it might be 72 hours, but there's a really simple fix for all that. Just put money into the infrastructure. Stop writing fancy reports and having lots of meetings and talking about it.
Thank you, Michelle. That was the question was answered. Right, thank you. Can we have Liz Kelly, please? Sorry?
Paula.
No. Sorry. Yeah, and you have 5 minutes for both of you. Not 5 minutes each. All right? That's the understanding, Jack?
No,
Correct?
I didn't ask for that. No.
I'm sorry, but that's what I have. That's the information that I have in front of me. Otherwise, we have 7 speakers rather than 6.
Come on, 5 minutes, Ross.
Point of order. Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Mayor said we could
I
do it.
seek leave to allow. I understand that it would mean that we would be in breach of our standing orders with regards to the length of time allotted for public forum. I'm seeking leave to suspend those parts of the standing orders to allow Paula to speak for 5 minutes.
Look,
Thank you, Jeff.
okay, if that's the, I don't have a problem. Away you go.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Paula Bernie toka whenua. I'm a Titahi Bay resident of 27 years. I was heartened to hear councillors clearly challenge representatives from Wellington Water at the recent PCC wastewater treatment plant landfill joint committee hui held last week, 24th of May. I would particularly like to commend Councillor Philo and Porirua Liz Kelly for their continued robust line of questioning, unfolding critical and insightful information. However, I believe the omission of some critical information in the minutes failed to capture a true and accurate reflection of the hui. For democracy to be effective, ratepayers need to see evidence and or hear their elected representatives holding stakeholders to account, ensuring we are getting the best return on investment for every dollar spent. I know for some who have had a seat around this table for some considerable time, they will feel conflicted and challenged at times by certain relationships. However, for elected members, it's not personal, it's business. And your role must be to hold both your CEO and other stakeholders to account. This means any form of public document should provide a true and accurate reflection of events, including acknowledgement of robust discussions and actions taken by councillors as well as other stakeholders. Paragraph 39 in the minutes states, pump station does not have capability of measuring the discharge volume going to Titahi Bay by the Rukatani outfall. Critical points missing from this paragraph include the reason why the pump station does not have capability. It's because the flow meter has been removed by Wellington Water. A financial decision was made based on the value of short-term versus long-term data to remove the flow meter from the main Titahi Bay sewage line at the south end behind the boat sheds. I would like to know who made this decision, Wellington Water, PCC, GWRC, or was this a joint decision? Note, Wellington Water were unable to advise the cost of maintaining a flow meter at the hui. I note the narrative is different from what was provided by Mr Ebbott in an OIA from Wellington Water on the 30th of August 2023, rationalisation of long-term flow monitoring sites. This follows a common theme as raised by Porirua Liz Kelly, that Wellington Water often change the narrative in their reports, and it would appear in other correspondence too, lacking specific, consistent, detailed information. Given that Wellington Water are obligated under the consent process to monitor and measure discharge overflow of sewage entering Titahi Bay and to publicly disclose this information, this seems very convenient that the flow meter has been removed, begging the question, how can Wellington Water accurately monitor and measure this data? Answers came at the hui, but again, don't seem to be noted. There was acknowledgement that untreated sewage is going directly into the ocean before it reaches the treatment plant, but Wellington Water don't know exactly what is going in, but do not consider it crucial for the network. I can assure you that ratepayers and residents most definitely believe it is crucial to the health and safety of their whānau and community, which is also clearly articulated in the hui by Porirua Les Kelly. Note, this is in direct conflict of a statement made by Steve Hutchins in the media on the 15th of April. No raw sewage had entered the bay in the last 12 months. Newsflash, Rukatani Point is just 800 metres away from the Titahi Bay beach, so sewage doesn't have far to travel. Finally, given that PCC has committed to spending $250 million with Wellington Water phased in up until 2035, I was rather surprised to hear CEO Wendy Walker confirm in correspondence to Brian Warburton on the 18th of April 2024 that PCC does not have contract inspections over Wellington Water's completed works. All management and operations, including network repairs, are the role of Wellington Water. Given the current track record of Wellington Water, I think ratepayers deserve better. This strikes me as an all-care, no-responsibility approach to the use of ratepayers' money. Wellington Water seem to frequently come cap in hand to councils requesting more money without any monitoring or oversight of the standard of work being completed. This seems a very poor approach to managing a return on investment with an organisation that is noted to have dysfunctional relationships with subcontractors, Veolia, in an independent review costing ratepayers over $100,000. Just over 2.5 years ago, and has a culture of learned helplessness internally, as noted in the fluoride investigation, June 2022, lest we forget the current $51 million hole. Almost a year ago, I presented to 4 hearing commissioners in this very room, opposing the 20-year consent licence. I describe it as a licence to buy time and a disaster waiting to happen. I was wrong. The disaster is already happening every day in plain sight. Last year, the chair of PCC Wastewater Treatment Plant and Landfill Joint Committee described residents as a difficult community requiring perfection. I hope with growing evidence that the chair has changed their mind. We are not a difficult community, nor do we require perfection, but we do require transparency and honesty and want to live in a safe and healthy environment. I don't believe this is too much to ask. Thank you for your time.
This time, Liz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just advising that we're doing a double act here.
Yes.
Yep.
I just did
We're doing a triple act, but it will be within the 5
5 minutes.
Yes.
All right. Are you prepared now? You ready to start?
All right. Shall I start?
Sorry.
Oh,
Right, we'll
aroha
start
mai.
now. Yeah.
Kia ora, tēnei te mihi ki a koutou katoa. Ko ai au, ko Karahamana hau, ko Ngāti Toa hau. Ko aua, I'm a kaimahi at the Runanga, a Ngāti Tōrangatira, and I'm really pleased and proud to be representing us today. I just have a few words to share. They're not as detailed as the past speeches, but before I do, I just want to acknowledge all of our Ngāti Tō whānau who have come to support this kaupapa today. Thank you for coming. We've got a few uncles and aunties, Uncle Tuck. This is a really important kaupapa, and we really appreciate your leadership, Kathleen. I've just got 3 points to make. Kathleen, I understand, is going to put a proposal on the table later today, and I want you to know it has the full support of Ngāti Toa of the Runanga. Any action that is taken to reduce, minimise and eliminate sewage discharge that goes into our beach and our harbour, we support. Taking action now is really important. If we don't take action now to minimise the discharge that's going into the beach, we face the beach turning into what our harbour is now. That's really important, and you've seen that we've got our tamariki here today, and really we need to be thinking about what's the future for them. We had a tangi on the weekend and our cousins had to go out and gather kaimoana. There could be a future where that's not possible, and that's just terrible for us as mana whenua. My last point is thought really needs to be given about the implications for not doing this. There's financial implications, there's social implications, but most of all for us, there's cultural implications. So we really want to leave that with you today, And I'll hand over to the other speakers. Kia ora.
Ngā mihi, ko Liz Kelly tōku ingoa. I'm going to speed this up because I'd like our hikatia from Greater Wellington to speak as well. I want to share with you a conversation in the recent hui last week at the wastewater landfill and wastewater and landfill joint committee meeting where Wellington City Council, Wellington Water Limited, confirmed when we asked them about a certain discharge, confirmed that they knew within 15 minutes of that discharge, they knew that it had happened. However, it took 15 hours for them to stop it and 23 hours before anybody was notified about the discharge. I had this conversation in my home with my son, and my son said, all that is, Mum, is environmental vandalism. I want to share that comment with you because I believe that is exactly what it is. Yesterday we had another discharge. We were told that that was within the consenting process. My concern as a resident, a long-term resident, as part of Ngāti Toa, my concern is that Porirua City Council are normalising discharges into our marine coastal waters, into our harbour, and are normalising it as common practice. They are enabling this to happen, and it needs to stop. And this here is a little sample of how Titahi Bay and our wider Porirua community will mobilise if there isn't a considered decision made today to support the amendments that Councillor Philo is making. I'd like to...
Kia ora koutou, ngā mihi nui kia koutou, ko hiki te Rōpataha. I'm the regional councillor representing Porirua, Tawa, Titahi Bay. Kia ora matua taku. Mr. Chair and Mayor, kia ora. Thank you for the time to speak. I just wanted to look to the future. Long-term plans are about the future. I know they're not, they're meant to be 10 to 20 to 30 years. Mostly they're not. I'm really keen for you as councillors to think about the future development in this area. It's going to happen. People are coming, houses are going to be built, and we need to invest in a wastewater treatment for that future where our mokopunas will be living. Kia ora.
Josh, one question from Councillor Trillin.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much for coming along today and speaking. My question is from Ngāti Toa's perspective, just around the comment that you'll support any action to reduce, minimise and eliminate discharge going into the harbour. When we're looking at this potential decision today, if we were to prioritise the Rukatane Point pump station, the two options we would have would either be reprioritising something else within our wastewater program or increasing our overall level of spending, which would be a rates increase. And I just wanted to clarify what your position was around that. Are you looking for reprioritisation or more overall spending?
So we think it needs to be and. So what I understand is that any sewage going out into Titahi Bay, it winds up in the harbour, regardless. And so we need to protect the bay because it's nowhere near like the harbour is currently, and we need to restore the harbour to its original state. So it has to be an and.
That's if you can't reprioritise.
Thank you. Yep, noted. Thank you very much. Can I now call upon Joe Kelly and Luke Barnsley from Wellington Board Riders Club?
To my Te hau tū, te hau tonga. Tēnā koutou katoa. Uri tēnei no Ngāti Tō Rangatira no Ngāti Tama no Hoki. Ko Joe Kelly tōku ingoa. I'm here today as a representative of the surfing community of Titahi Bay and the wider Wellington area. I've grown up in Titahi Bay and I've surfed all my life there, and I still do. Titahi Bay is the premier surf location in our region. It is the most consistent and it caters for all levels, from beginner to advanced. On average, we have 200 plus days of good surf a year, and it brings hundreds of surfers from around the region to our beach. I'm also involved with the Wellington Board Riders, and because of its consistency, Titahi Bay is regularly where we have our junior events. And in the coming months, we will have junior events every 2 weeks. I was in the water in April and in March when those recent outfalls happened. I smelt it, I felt it, and I had my nephew and my niece out with me, teaching them. There was no notification, no nothing. It's not good enough. I recently had a discussion with one of my colleagues at the Board Riders who recently contracted cryptosporidium, which is a notified infectious disease. She was contacted by the Ministry of Health, who put 2 and 2 together and let her know that that was from surfing Titahi Bay from an outfall the day before. You're making us sick by doing this. It needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. Prioritise the spending required to mitigate what is happening. My background, I'm a chartered geotechnical professional. I've worked for Wellington Water on projects across the region. I've seen where they've put storage facilities in place to stop contamination of water sources. This is no different. So please prioritise this and, accept what we're saying and listen to us. And don't allow our moana to become like what our harbour is. Questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions from councillors? There being none, I thank you very much for your submission. And can I ask Titahi Bay School? There are some students who I think wish to speak. Is that correct?
You're right, they're not that scary. Yeah, good.
We have got a simple message. We love our beach. Can you please fix our pipes?
From them.
Any questions, councillors, of our children? I think that's a message related to the pipes. Understand? Goes without saying. All right, can I now call on Steve Donkin from Titahi Bay Surf Life Saving Club?
Morena tātou, ko Steve Donkin tōku ingoa. Mr Chair, Madam Mayor, councillors. I'm here to represent the Titahi Bay Surf Life Saving Club, but also I'm a ratepayer and I'm a father of children that swim in the bay. And as the treasurer of Titahi Bay, on the committee, we are responsible for our 400 members that you insist on creating an environment that is detrimental to their health. We have been at the Bay since 1938 as a kaitiaki for locals and visitors alike. Our 400 members have recently reviewed our club vision, which is preserving lives at our beach and developing our people. The achievement of our vision is conflicted through the continual sewage discharge, preventing our members and our community being able to safely use Te Tahi Bay for water-based recreation. The club pride ourselves in having highly skilled surf lifeguards, having a thriving junior surf program with 127 to 13-year-olds in the water, and we offer a variety of competitive surf and sports programs. If you haven't visited our club rooms at 7 Toms Road, please drop in during our surf season, as we love showing off our history and success at local, national and international events. Te Tahi Bay is known as a successful and welcoming surf club and have been so for over 86 years. We value our space on the beachfront and all this offers our members and the community. So the connection to the topic of today's meeting is more about the conflict we face as a community with our values of encouraging participation and being proud of our club. Please don't just hear what the community here, have voted you in to act on our behalf as our kaitiaki, but listen as we all implore you to stop the nonsense and trade-offs that you seem to have convinced yourselves are appropriate. Raw sewage in our moana is disgraceful. This isn't the 1970s, where there wasn't awareness and solutions to the problem that you face, but it's 2024 and our future is being challenged. The impact to our community because of the raw sewage affects our health, our membership, our trainings, our events, and quite frankly is embarrassing when after we invite guest clubs from other regions to enjoy our beach, we often then have to cancel events due to sewage and poor bacterial health of our water. Porirua City Council, your brand is being damaged every time that happens. We simply want to fulfil our key role in giving kids the opportunity to be able to swim safely in the ocean that is on their doorstep. I implore you to listen to our concerns and stand up for our community, because that's what your job is, not trade us off for another 10 years. Do your jobs that you're elected to do and stop the sewage discharge.
Steve, Councillor Filo has a question.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Two questions. One, I wondered if you mentioned health affecting your health, so I wondered if you could speak to some of those, if you have some examples. And the second one is, I wondered if when the pump station discharges the raw sewage, are you, as the Life Saving Club, are you ever notified of that, or is it just you've got a...
You should poll your residents and actually discover how many people get sick because of swimming in the moana or in the harbour. Because anecdotal evidence from a number of us really isn't going to convince you that you have a major problem out there. My question to the council is, how many of you actually swim out there 24 hours after a sewage discharge? Because I bet you it's none of you, because you know that the fecal count is so high. And sorry, your second question?
Was if you ever got notified, your organisation ever got notified about the pump station discharges?
Yeah, no direct notification to the surf club. And as far as us visibly seeing it, far end, we've seen a manhole cover pop up and there's raw sewage and paper spilling out on the beach while our kids are running up and down it. That's how disgusting this problem is.
Right, thank you. So that brings us to the end of, thank you, Steve, to the end of our public forum. Thank you very much, everyone, for your heartfelt views. It's appreciated that you could come in and talk to us directly. Right, so councillors, that brings us back to our agenda, which item 4, which is conflict of interest declarations. I must say, so you can either leave now or we'll be discussing this issue, particularly in item 7.2 of our agenda. So we'll just wait for the... Okay, I'll officially adjourn for 2 minutes. The meeting has restarted. May I ask the people that are sitting at the table that aren't councillors if there are chairs available to use those chairs, please? Yeah, you can pull them back and sit in them. Just away from the table, that's all. There is still one person sitting at the table. Can I ask you to sit back, please? Taku? Thank you. Right. I'm now going to move to item 4, which is conflict of interest declarations. Are there any conflicts of interest? And I note that this is a very important item, which is always reinforced to me by the chair of our committee, which is Audit and Risk, who we'll hear from later about how important this is. So are there any conflicts of interest people wish to declare? There being none, let's move to item 5, which is notifications of extraordinary business. I understand there are no items of extraordinary business, so we'll move therefore to item 6, which is confirmation of the minutes of Te Puni Kōrero of the 23rd of May 2024. I move those minutes to get them on the table, seconded by Councillor Duncan. Sorry, Councillor Hayward, didn't see you first. Are there any corrections to the minutes, councillors? No, there being none, I'm going to put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. I now want to move to an item. I'm going to move a motion to suspend certain standing orders for this meeting. This will hopefully allow for a freer debate today, and so therefore I'm going to move that the following... I'll do it first. I know we have a seconder already. The following standing orders are suspended for the remainder of the meeting. and that's Standing Order 23.2A relating to the ability of movers and seconders of reports to move or second an amendment. All right, that's the first one. And Standing Order 23.2C relating to the ability of movers or seconders of amendments that are lost to move further amendments. I have a seconder, Councillor Trillin. Anyone wish to speak? No. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. I'll also just add one further thing. If any member wishes to take any clauses separately in today's papers or hold a division, please request that clearly at the time when we're discussing. Okay? And we have 100% of, more than 75% of members voted in favour of this. So let's move on to, I'm having a conversation with myself, never mind. Okay, let's move on to the first report, which is item 7.1, the long-term plan 2024 to 34, financial information. Now, I'm going to remove this report to put it on the table. Do I have a seconder aside from you? Oh, Councillor Trillin. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is ask, are you going to introduce this? Yeah, sure. The Chief Executive, Wendy Walker, will introduce this.
Kia ora, councillors. We'll do a bit of a tag team on this actually. I'll pass to Nick after I've spoken and to Jim. But I did want to make some brief comments at the front end. They really cover all three papers around the long-term plan. This long-term plan would be the most difficult of my career. They seem to be an escalating difficulty as I go in my career, so that's always somewhat problematic. But certainly we're faced with a whole lot of issues. We've got, as has been evidenced this morning, a failing infrastructure network in this town that we struggle to overcome some pretty basic issues around, and this council has prioritised the harbour, but we're hearing now that equally our coastal environment is challenged as well with those same issues. So we've known for some time, it's been decades in the making, not of this council's making. We are left to tidy it up. So it's certainly a problem that I know you all struggle with, and certainly us as advisors to you struggle with. We're also been a pro-growth council, so that's a sort of twin bogey that we would like to be part of solving the housing crisis, but actually our infrastructure constraints are preventing us doing that at the moment. So how do we balance those issues? Of course, the bogey around the change in water reform has also had a bearing on this long-term plan. We were due at 1st of July this year, and then it was pushed out back to 1st of October to move our water issues to a new entity. If we had been able to do that, a lot more investment over the next 3 years would have been able to occur, and we were somewhat pinning our hopes on that. That is now a longer trajectory as we look forward to developing an entity in this region with our other councils. On top of that, we've had costs that are escalating as we've gone out for all of our projects. Costs have gone up, and they have gone up alarmingly. So we've got a whole lot of issues, and in my career in local government, I won't tell you how long that is, but it's quite long. a rates rise of 17.5%, which is what we are proposing here, was unimaginable once upon a time. We would never have, the answer was always under 5%. The cost of that, of course, was the renewal of our infrastructure. So actually, we constrained, we took affordability as our number one priority, and maybe that's an issue that we all are having to front now. So just wanted to kind of reflect on those issues because you're the decision makers. We've tried to provide you with the best possible advice to get you through this. But basically, we have stripped a lot of things out of our budget, both our operating and our capex, to get to the very high still figure of 17.5% average rates increase. So it's not a place any of us would have imagined being even a couple of years ago. So we're debt constrained, and we're constrained in terms of what we can basically charge our ratepayers. So I'm going to pass to Nick for more detail.
Thank you, Wendy, and kia ora, councillors, and welcome to the public who are here this morning. So it goes without saying that this LTP has been challenging and presented many uncertainties along the way, which has meant we've had to be agile and respond as best we can with the information that we have, which is coming in hot nearly every day. With the perfect storm of cost escalations, keeping water services on our books, and the cumulative impact of debt, we've had to reduce our spending approach for this plan. It's in stark contrast to the money that the city needs to actually invest to get it into the shape it needs to be. Unlike previous years, we didn't propose any new projects in the first 3 years of this plan. We instead focused on reprioritising, delaying, or stopping non-essential projects. This has meant we have been able to reduce rates increases in the first year from what really was around 20 to 24%. I guess that explains the situation that we're in. Despite the significant reductions to the capital program, which I know none of you feel comfortable about, and neither do officers, we are still facing large rates increases, as are councils across the country. Managing rates affordability with the right level of investment in essential services and long-term priorities has been a pivotal part of this LTP and continues to be a really challenging balance for us. Despite only having one proposal, which was the curbside waste collection, we received almost 50% more submissions than the previous LTP, with 517 submissions in total. We also introduced video submissions for the first time, receiving almost 200, with around 90% of these from our Pacific communities. We heard from 47 people at our hearings, and it was a full house of young people speaking passionately in support of Te Kiwanui Festival, and obviously today we've heard about Titahi Bay. We also heard from the community about some of the projects we propose to defer or stop. This report, the Deliberations report, covers officer recommendations on Council's key proposal and highlights key themes from the consultation. The attachments cover a summary of engagement as well as analysis on the key proposal and additional feedback which aims to support discussions and decision making today. Similar to previous LTPs, we also heard from groups who requested funding. These requests and recommendations, including a recommendation for Te Kiwanui Festival, will be covered in the next report. So it's your last report, which is funding. You'll have 3 in front of you today. It should be noted that Council supports community organisations in a range of ways, through in-kind support, advocacy and connections, contractual agreements, as well as contestable grants funding. Officer recommendations for funding requests do not have an additional impact on the proposed LTP budget. Following the meeting, officers will incorporate decisions made into the final LTP, which is scheduled for adoption on the 27th of June, And at that point, our auditors will provide their audit opinion for the LTP. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we, Wendy, would you like to ask Jim to make a comment? Would you like to? Jim?
I would just echo those comments through Chair. So we'll try and answer questions factually and give you implications of any of your discussions. I guess we had previously advised that for every $1 million OPEX, you roughly get a 1% rates rise. And we had previously advised that $10 million CapEx is about 1% rates rise. However, we are now sitting pretty much at our debt cap, and if you look at the investment profile over the next 10 years, and as a consequence of that, a $10 million increase on top of our current investment profile would indicate that we would have somewhere between probably about 3.5% to 4% increase. It's a little complicated because the higher the increase is earlier on, you have a compounding effect and it sort of reduces later on. But that gives you an idea that it's the debt limits that we're now up against that are driving higher rates increases. So that just gives you some sort of guidance on your thinking, discussion. I really don't have too much else to add. We'll try and answer your questions as best we can.
Thank you very much for that, Jim. Look, I just want to ask Warren Allen, who's the chair of our Audit and Risk Committee, whether you would like to say a few words to us, Warren. If you want, please come up.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to participate in the debate. Just to point out that the Audit and Risk Committee haven't looked at the detailed long-term plan yet. We will do that between your deliberations today and the finalisation of the long-term plan at the end of June. But really, can I endorse what the Chief Executive, Nick and Jim have said? This has been a really difficult process this time round. And don't feel alone on that. I think every council throughout the Motu, as they're working through the long-term plans this year, have found it very challenging. So, this is not just a localised issue, it's a sector issue. And Chair, I'm happy to sort of come back at the end or throughout the process, but I can say to councillors, you are well served by the process that management run. I was impressed 3 years ago with the process for the long-term plan. The involvement of the community in this area is better than many councils throughout the country. And I see that again this time, that the process that has been run to get you to this position today is excellent. So wish you well with the debate.
Thank you very much, Warren. So at this stage, I think I'll turn it over to councillors to ask questions of this financial information, noting that essentially what this does, this paper, is bring together a lot of information that we've had previously. There is some new information in there, and there's also information in there on material that we are going to be put to us in item 7.2, so which is new spending. So I'll open it for questions. Do I have? Yes, Councillor Hayward. Thank you.
Ata Māori mātua upoko me he kaikanahira me he tangata o te hāpori katoa. Point 21. This is page 15. And it's in regards to Wellington Water. obviously the bombshell announcement from Wellington Water around their numbers not being accurate has impacted this LTP. I read in that paragraph that it is to fit within the existing financial envelope. Can you explain some of the rationale behind that and how that is going to actually play out in terms that we can communicate to the public?
Yes. Can I ask Jim or Mike? Mike.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the question, Councillor. So we're in discussions with Wellington Water about that exact point, Councillor. There's no question that that cannot be magicked away somehow. It cannot magically kind of make everything happen that we had anticipated would happen. The principles that we're working with Wellington Water on are around deferral outside of the 10-year plan in terms of some of the activities. So that's the kind of general principle about how we're trying to manage that with Wellington Water.
Yes. So just regarding that response, and thank you for that. If I've understood your point correctly, that measures may include deferral of items that are not already in the 10-year plan. Did I hear that correctly?
No, items that are already in the 10-year plan.
Are already in the 10-year plan. Okay. In terms of the report back around the rephased capital works program that's been alluded to here, our rephased program, when is that due to come back to councillors for review?
We're working through the details of that now, Councillor. As soon as we're able, we will provide that. We'll provide that to you. I anticipate that will be in the coming few weeks. I know Wellington Water now is busy working on that very issue.
So is it possible that this information will be presented to council in time before the final meeting of council where they sign off on the long-term plan? Sorry,
it's coming, it's coming, Jeff. They're just...
Sorry, Councillor, I'm just taking advice from Mr. Toka.
Understood.
Can you speak there, please?
Through the chair, just to clarify an item here. So what Wellington Water has actually provided to us is a revised plan, which they have, in effect, is neutral to our financial modelling, our financial outcomes, but they've also provided a list of a series of risks associated with that plan. And the level of understanding and detail behind exactly what those level of risks are is something that I think Mike's referring to in terms of subsequent conversations. So yes, they had made a mistake in terms of their overhead allocations or lack of. What they've come back to us is a plan which actually fits within our financial envelope. So therefore, you have to conclude that there is some increased risk in that profile.
Last pass up on this. I understand that, and this has come up before by councillors around the estimations of contingencies for CapEx projects. How confident are we that we still have robust contingencies in place for capital works that are inside the 10-year and beyond?
Councillor, I think we've learned many lessons around estimates over the last few years, and I think that the way that we sometimes budget for these things is perhaps a little bit too prescriptive and certain in the knowledge of the things that are dynamic in our markets. So we are taking an approach where we are very cautious about the level of confidence in the prices that we have. And as you appreciate, just in the last 12 months, often with the Three Waters infrastructure, you don't know what you've got until you've actually dug the hole in the ground. So our level of confidence is commensurate with the level of uncertainty whenever you dig a hole in the ground and have to do something underground. So it's modest.
Okay, no more questions.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Other councillors, questions? Yes, Councillor Philo.
It's just regard to page 16, the graph, the table there. Could Through the chair, could someone please remind me where in here are our climate change initiatives? I felt like it was in the management group, but someone could clarify, please.
Who's Jim or Graham?
I'll just get Graham to come to the table. I presume it's in other. Ian, Graham?
Yeah, sorry, through the chair. Some are within the property function. That was to do with the boilers and to do with the infrastructure for the cars and things like that. And then within the infrastructure, there's within the fleet in terms of changing some of the fleet and things like that. So it's within those budgets.
No, that's right.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Philo?
Yep, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Oh, sorry, just...
You got another question?
Yeah. Regarding the Waitangirua link roads, can officers just remind me again, that's just for the water mains, is it? Not the wastewater?
Who's going to answer that?
That's correct, Councillor. There's a redesign for the wastewater side.
All right. Any other questions, councillors? Sorry, I have, if there are no other questions, I have a question, item 16. This table talks about timing assumptions and other factors. Can I just confirm, given that in 27-28, our revised average effect on existing ratepayers is an 8.5% rate increase, that, and we do mention curbside organics, which there's been no decision made on at this stage, it's just a placeholder in the LTP, whether just ensuring that recycling is in there, the item that we have actually consulted on is in there, and what is the percentage?
So, through the chair. So there is no timing difference from our previous draft plan, in terms of curbside collection. Curbside collection roughly has a capital cost of about 1.6 million. That's including glass and rubbish. There is an ongoing OPEX cost that kicks in from, I think it's year five.
That's 28, 29.
28, 29. Sorry, the year before, isn't it? Sorry, 27. Yeah, the year four. And that's in the order of about $5 million per year. Accumulative between the two, the rubbish and the glass. So the numbers are incorporated into that.
So they are incorporated?
They're incorporated into the...
That's good. Thank you for confirming that. Do councillors have any other questions on the additional financial information that we've been given here and being asked to approve? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. So this brings us to item 7.2, which is the Deliberations report. I'm going to move it to put it on the table. Do I have a seconder? Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Waddle. So I don't know whether you want to speak any further to this, Nick, or you've already talked a little bit about it, but have you anything further to say before we get into discussions?
No, Chair. Open to questions. Take it as read.
Okay. So we have, at this stage, we have 2 amendments signalled for this. And the first amendment, can we have it up on the screen, please? Because it has changed, hasn't it? So this is, I'm going to take the First Amendment from Councillor Filo, which is different to the way it is in our material in front of us. So Councillor Filo, you're recommending that, I'm going to read this just to make sure, agree to reinstate, because that's the first time I've seen it, there's been a change recently, agree to reinstate Rukatani Point Pump Station back into the current LTP. That's 10 years, I assume. Agree to stop the continued environmental vandalism by fully funding the upgrade to Rukatani Point Pump Station, and agree for this work to be completed within the next 3 years. Also agree to the funds for this work to be found within existing budgets by reprioritising Wellington Water's proposed planned works. And also further note that Ngāti Toa Rangatira, as a concerned partner, support the proposed amendments. That's what we have. It's been moved and seconded by Councillor Hayward. I now open it up for discussion. Kathleen, do you want to talk to?
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. So we've heard from our community, and they've spoken pretty much to this amendment. Some things that we heard were raw sewage is not making it up to the treatment plant via the pump station, so it's going straight out into our waters. We've heard that the volume is not being measured. We don't know how much. We only know how long it's gone for. And no notifications are being put out. So when that pump station discharges raw sewage, no one knows unless they're out there and they smell it, and the kids are going out, the public health for our children and our residents is at risk. I want to acknowledge that this is a challenging time for us as councillors. We don't have a report, so to speak. We don't have an update on the actual cost of the upgrade, and that is not for want of trying. I requested that 6 months ago, and so did the chair of the wastewater committee. But regardless, it doesn't change the fact, the urgency of this work, and we've heard clear messaging from our community this morning. Reprioritisation is the approach that I am seeking. I believe we need to use our discernment here. The funding is there. It's more of a shuffling around, and that is our choice to do. So really the question is, do we want to prioritise this? Do we want to fund it to get it fixed? I have also indicated in other emails that some options for with reprioritisation. There's the odour treatment. Again, this is where I think we do need to demonstrate discernment. This is $8 million put aside for that for this year and next. That seems a lot of money. And that is to service 4 to 5 homes in that isolated area. And I'm not, dismissing that. I feel for them. But as councillors, we need to also look at the cost of delaying that odour treatment versus the cost of delaying the pump station upgrade and the effects that follow on from that. I also mentioned water meters as another option as well. The irony isn't lost that we would put money into meters before addressing raw sewage going into our waterways. This also hasn't been consulted on yet, and the reviews that we've gotten back so far from the report seem mixed. Sorry.
That's all right, take your time.
Yeah. We've heard lots of heartfelt messaging today, and it was quite emotive. So I know we'll be questioning the cost. How do we afford this? Well, there's three things really. The cost today will never be cheaper. So are we going to wait for this to be bigger than the storage tank price when we could solve it? Well, if we'd, 3 years ago it was 6.4 million. Are we going to wait for it to be bigger than that? So addressing it now while there's still a window of opportunity before it becomes as bad as the harbour. Growth as well, we don't have anything. We've got more houses coming, for sure, and it can't handle the current capacity now. But really, it's the cost of not doing it, which was reedified by Ngāti Toa. We've heard from the public about their health, the effects on that, and obviously our waterways. Our harbour, we want to put money into climate change, reducing organic waste emissions, yet going to still allow pollution into our water.
Kathleen, I'll just remind you that 5 minutes is on.
Oh, okay. Okay. I guess the question you'll all be thinking too is why Titahi Bay? Why is that important over other beaches, which I have heard? Titahi Bay, they have gotten everybody's tūtai from Jayville to Pukerua Bay. We've heard people speak about the double hit. So at that same outfall, we have the pump station discharging raw sewage, and then we have the treatment plant discharging as they do. We have an obligation. We have an obligation to make sure that at least the pump station, Titahi Bay's sewage, does not go out into the sea. It's taking everybody else's crap, right? We have an obligation to that. A stitch in time saves 9. I want us to use a common sense approach for this, hear the clear messaging, and I don't want to have to, in 10 years' time, talk about the stories of what we used to be able to do in Titahi Bay because we didn't address it now.
Thank you, Kathleen. We have Councillor Trillam. Oh, and Taku. I did acknowledge him first and then you, Taku, that's fine.
Cool. Thank you very much, Chair. I've got a few brief comments and then some questions, noting I've got more extensive comments around the LTP generally, which I'll make outside of this amendment. I completely agree with the concerns raised around contamination of our harbour and beach. It seems clear that regardless of the decision we make today, there's some significant improvement required in terms of communications with our community around when overflows are happening. I hope those concerns have been noted and we pass along with a clear expectation of improvement to Wellington. My key concern is making sure that the investment that we make is going to be the most effective possible investment in a constrained fiscal environment to be able to achieve our desired outcomes. So I've got some questions that I want to drill down into that specifically. So first of all, could officers please speak to the prioritisation process for our wastewater projects, and in particular speak to why Rukutane Point has been listed as medium risk?
Context there. Thank you, Councillor. Context there. First of all, you talked about the constrained fiscal environment. We did reduce from 110 million to 60 million last year. So some of what we're discussing today is kind of in the context and the squeeze that we have put on Wellington Water. Wellington Water's advice was gave us advice around what we ought to be investing to keep a level of service. We haven't funded to that level. Secondly, when it comes to pump stations, just a couple of things about pump stations. In New Zealand, most pump stations overflow in wet weather events. It's pretty standard. I'm not proud of this, but it's pretty standard in most cities. Auckland in particular, spectacularly lately, that's been an issue. We're no different here in Porirua in the Wellington region. We haven't designed our pump stations around peak weather flows, and as we have more intense rainfall growth, our pump stations are struggling to cope with those. I guess I can't speak for Wellington Water and how they've actually assessed that as a medium, but in that context, that the pump station is one of many we have that do not perform in a way that is consistent with our environmental aspirations.
And so further to that question, if we're thinking about the other pump stations generally, if we're making decisions around what we're prioritising and what we're funding, could you speak to how you view this particular pump station compared to others that may also be priorities?
From an engineering perspective, I think it's probably similar to many that we have, most of the pump stations that we have, but clearly engineering is not the only criteria by which we judge these things.
So, sorry to clarify, I mean in terms of prioritisation, what is most urgent and what we're likely to be focusing on first in advance of this, assuming nothing changes?
So I'm kind of reluctant to single out pump stations because our whole network, and including the treatment plant, all need renewing and upgrading. And in fact, Wellington Water has given us the highest priority critical assets, and it's actually not this pump station, to be honest with you. It is that the main trunk line from Parramatta is at high risk of failure. Massive price tag associated with that, of course. I know we've singled out Urukotani for now, but actually we have issues across our whole network, Councillor.
Could you speak a little bit more to the Parramatta trunk line and the issues we're seeing there?
So it's already failed once. It is paper thin in places and at risk of failing again. We are also looking at this very closely with respect to growth. So not only does it need to be renewed, it needs to be upgraded as well. So this project runs into a couple of $100 million. So when I say a massive price tag, it is a massive price tag.
And to clarify, if we vote today in support of this amendment, which focuses on reprioritisation as opposed to new funding, would the consequence of that be that the necessary work for the Parramatta trunk line would be delayed?
I don't think so. Parramatta is such a big job and tied up with our thinking about growth in the northern area that we're not yet in a position to bring you advice around how we're going to fund that. Okay. I'll just ask Mr. Tocker to make some addition.
Yeah, just through the chair, there is no way within the fiscal envelope that we have at the moment that we could fund that main trunk line upgrade. It would require the new water entity and the new financing tools to be able to do that. So I just want to be quite clear about that.
Okay, cool. Thank you. If we don't make any changes to the proposed LTPs, so i.e. if we do not accept this amendment today, when is Rukutane likely to next be upgraded? What's our best estimate, understanding that obviously it sits outside the 10-year window?
There is actually funding in the 10-year window for pump station upgrades. It's a general line. It's not tagged to any specific pump station. But yes, you're right. It will be at least in the back half and late end of this 10 years, or indeed in the next 10 years.
Okay, thank you. And my last question on this for now is, if we chose to not reprioritise, but we wanted to fund this through additional rates funding, what would the rating impact be of choosing to fund this particular project?
Through the chair, that would be in the order of somewhere between 4.3 and 5.1%.
Thank you, Councillor Trillin. Josh. Taku.
To you, Mr. Chair, I think Ngāti Tōrangatira has put up with enough rubbish coming into our waterways over the last 100 or so years. The building of the old Porirua hospital pushed thousands and thousands of gallons of crap into that harbour while we were gathering food. No consultation, no dialogue. I lost cousins to typhoid. And now if you're going to let this issue go lightly, then we're going to be so totally disgusted. I sat with the old people and they said, fix it. My people were here this morning pushing that issue, fix it. We've suffered too many times, too many years. with the pollution of our waterways. And we've had enough, really. You can jump around the hot fire all day, all night, all long. But Ngāti Toa wants this piece of work fixed. If it's just a matter of prioritisation, then prioritise. We here stand by this council day in, day out, our people. We believe in the council, we believe in what's happening here, but there's some things we just can't stand by and watch happen. If our mokopuna are swimming in the ocean, are singing, surfing in the ocean, and crap flows past them, and they're sucking in pieces of water. Come on. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Doug. Councillor Ford. Well, I thought you wanted.
That's okay.
Then Kat, then Mayor Baker.
I was just trying to respect my elders.
And then you.
And
then you.
Sorry, so my question during public forum around the flow meter, just I feel like to avoid what appears to be a lack of transparency, if we can get an answer from our staff around why the flow meter was removed, and was that not part of the resource consent that that flow meter should be in? So I don't know who's going to...
Mike, do you want to...
Mike.
Yeah, so our advice, thanks, Councillor. Our advice from Wellington Water was removed, as somebody mentioned, I think, as part of rationalising of the metering. I can't give you any more advice than that, I'm sorry.
Okay. That sounds pretty legit. Look, I think the public forum raised one of the major frustrations, or I think concerns, that was perfectly summed up by one of the speakers from Tirai Bay School, which is, we love our beach, can you please fix our pipes? And then I think former councillor Kelly said the sewage pipes. They also raised a lot of concerns around like the length of time that they are being notified. And I think those are little simple wins that we could probably get across the table. I'm in support of the amendment that Councillor Wheelock, just want to put that on the table now. And I did want to ask, though, our staff around the reprioritisation, which I think Councillor Trillin had asked some of my questions, but I wondered around if we were to reprioritise in terms of putting the shared pathway, as an example, on hold, or pushing that back, would that be a possibility?
Ooh, who wants to answer that, Wendy?
All things are possible. We do have, Mike's probably better placed to answer some of this, but we do have roading resilience issues, so we would need to look at some work around that. We've told you that we are happy to come back. We'll have more information actually in August, September around the funding available from Waka Kotahi for that work. So, they're not that good at providing us information on time for our LTP Waka Kotahi. They walked their own tune there. But yes, there is some funding in there. We may need most of what is there for roading resilience purposes, but we don't really know right now. Mike, you might want to shed more light on that.
Well, as you say, anything's possible. It's councillor's decision. But I'd just make the point that the resolution as it stands talks about using Wellington water budgets rather than other budgets. So that's what our thinking's been so far. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Mayor Baker. Have you got anything else? Mayor Baker.
Thank you. I've sat here since 2010, and every year we increase our budgets on trying to improve our harbour. And every year I feel like we don't see anything, and the prices just keep going up and up. I'm not a water engineer. I rely on what Wellington Water tell us. I know that we have renewals that we need to do after what happened with our last big blowout. We've seen come through our submissions, Mana Esplanade, the water mains pop there all the time. That sewage goes into our inner harbour. We hear about Rokutani Point all the time from the groups who have been here today. The Deputy Mayor and I, along with our CE, went to ESR, and we saw the readings that Ngāti Toa had done with all the treatment stations for the readings around the city. and the inner harbour is being destroyed quicker because of the sewage. Now, as much as I'd like to say I'd like to do Mana Esplanade first, I can't. We're at 32 to 35 million. That is just not feasible at the moment when we need to do the main one down the harbour. I do not want to have another blowout down there. We hear it's hard. We sit here, we're for the whole city, and people who are in their set areas feel obliged to do set things. This new amendment, Kathleen, I'm happy with because it doesn't have any dollar figure. The previous one, I would have said no. Now there's no dollar figure. I'm happy to support this amendment. I do think fixing one area and getting the one area done correctly, we're still going to have overflows down here at Parramatta, down at Porirua, because our stormwater tank is not ready. That is the highest area of pollution in this city down there. And anybody who gets in a waka knows, or swims at the beach at Parramatta and Plymouton, it is the same problem. You are getting sewage in the harbour. That is not something I'm proud of. We are trying. 55% of our money is going into pipes. It's never going to be enough. Three Waters was going to help us, and now that's delayed. So once again, we've got to wait for a couple more years. But we do need to fix one area. And the thing that we do know is coming are the signs for Titahi Bay Beach. Open, closed, quite simple. They are going in. I had instructed the CE to do that. They will be in. So the community will know whether the beach is open or closed. Not proud to say it will be closed because we will have more overflows. But this council is doing what we can. So I will support your amendment.
Councillor Weehapi.
Kia ora. Firstly, I just want to acknowledge Ngāti Toa, Rangatira, all those in the room. Please bear with me because I jumped from one place to the other in my notes, so I've got them numbered now, so it should flow nicely. So I guess our harbour is the top of our strategic priority. It really is, and it has been for a long time. And unfortunately, we've come to this mess where, a lack of investment over the years, and we can go on about lack of investment, but obviously we need to move forward, and particularly around what Hikitia was saying, investing in our future. I do want to note that that obviously it's not an isolated issue. Rukatani point. The Unipoto arm is absolutely shocking, and it happens more so than we know about, actually, and that's not good enough. So, I mean, I personally would be, if I wanted, if I won lotto tomorrow, I'd put it towards the Parramatta trunk line wastewater pipe. So you can hold me to that if you want to. Today, 43 million. Oh, is it 50 million? There you go. I'll pay for it. So my personal view overall is that we are better off actually renewing pipes and main trunk lines than we are fixing pump stations that are actually the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. Obviously there are two separate things. Pump stations are overflow issue, and the pipes are the number one issue in the first place. Right, let me get to my numbers. Right, as I said, I am in complete support of Ngāti Toa in regards to the cultural implications that this is having on the city. I also agree with the tamariki at Titahi Bay School that we need to fix the pipes. I mean, that's a no-brainer. The other thing as well is that it sucks because it all comes down to money. We have 20,000-ish ratepayers paying for a city, a population of over 60,000 people. We are never, ever going to be able to get it right. We're never going to get enough. It's just completely unfair, to be honest. And so we also support whānau across the city who will struggle financially in the future to pay their rates. It's just not palatable. Honestly, it keeps me up at night sometimes. Anyway, move on. Number 8. Where's number 8? Over there. I have no issues actually supporting your amendment, Councillor Whilo. I just want to point out, though, that point E, the continued environmental vandalism is only going to be stopped by renewing the pipes. That's kind of how I... But anyway, I will...
Thank you, Councillor.
And that's all I've got to say about that.
Councillor Duncan, then Councillor Nali.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I echo what Kylie had to say there. It makes good sense. We're in extraordinary times. We're wildly compromised budgets, and we've had to cut spending to the bone to do that. And even then, we're still putting a rate increase of 17.5 that'll test the more affluent in our society more than even those who can't afford it. We have sewer lines around the city that are pushing shit uphill, and that's literally and figuratively. We're scratching for every available dollar to fix them, and if we're going to be increasing rates rises, it should be for fixing the pipes, if nothing else. I want to address the misconception that fixing the pump station will fix the problem. It won't, will it? Because it's the pipes that feed, it's the I&I, the ingress and inundation that's actually adding to the problem. And so even if we put in a gold-plated pump station, that ain't going to fix it for us, is it? So the best investment for us to prevent the overflows is to invest in renewals of the pipe network. And the wastewater tank is going to help us out with the Rukatani point there because it's downstream from that tank. So I don't want to see us increasing rates any more than 17.5 because I can't see how on earth people are going to be able to afford that. I'll support the amendment as long as we change the spelling of Rukatani. But otherwise, yeah, I'll...
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Nalo.
I just want to echo the sentiments of Councillor Whilo, and a very stern talking to from our kaumātua reminds me of my koro when I was getting a growling. It scared me into making the right decisions. So today, Taku, you've played your part. Well done. I think Kylie touched on a couple of my questions, as well as Izzy. It's as simple as we love our beach, fix our pipes. I just want to say that I do support Councillor Whilo through this. She has put in work for a long time, and I'm here to support you. Thank you.
Councillor Waddle.
Yeah, this is, it's been a tough morning to hear the emotion and the raw, not raw sewage, but the raw angst in the community, not only in Te Tahi Bay, but in the wider city. The residents of Plimerton, residents of Parramatta, Mana Esplanade, everywhere we are seeing it. And I will be supporting your amendment, Councillor Whilo. It's a pretty clear-cut, straightforward amendment. Unfortunately, though, it's, to Mike's point, Councillor Duncan's point, it's not about the pump station, it's about the pipes. As Mayor Baker was speaking to the failure points that we'll see at Parramatta Roundabout, which sends raw sewage into Parramatta School, and at the city centre, sending it into the harbour, we're still going to see that happen. But on the back of those pump stations, if we were to put in a gold-plated Rukatani Point pump station, it will still fail and it will still overflow. And we still won't have addressed the pipe issue. So that's my 2 cents worth, but I think we've got to do what's right for the community and we've got to return some mana to Te Tahi Bay Beach.
Councillor Hayward.
It's a full set. Kia ora no.
Not quite.
Well, aroha mai matua upoko, you'll get your turn. I started writing notes last night, and then I realised that the work that Councillor Whilo has been doing with officers to try and come up with a workable motion actually rendered all of my concerns that I had and apprehensions had disappeared. However, I do want to kind of articulate my reasons for both supporting the motion and seconding it. I don't think it's lost on anyone how personal the bay is to people in Porirua. So I'm not going to tell my story, I'm going to tell Louis' story. Louis is a young kid. I met him, and I know his mum for many years either, at a quiz night. Smart kid, loves computer games. We had a hell of a time talking about that. He goes to Titahi Bay School. In fact, one of the reasons I went down to watch the triathlon again this year was to watch him compete. Cycling, swimming, running. We're all down there at the beach. We're also becoming cognizant that same weekend we had a discharge event happening. All those tamariki. And it's not just then, there's a whole heap of instances where this is happening. You've heard them all today. Why should Louis be punished any more for this than anyone else? Why should anybody be punished? Because he's got a young kid, and he will have tamariki and mokopuna as well. I think a moment should be taken for the improvements that are being undertaken and have already been put into the LTP. The Know Your Pipes project helps deal with the private side of the network and giving financial support to whānau and households who aren't able to do that work. The storage tank is important. It deals with, for the most part, the leaks that inflow and infiltration that happen across Porirua before they get to the bay. That is supposed to also help support the bay as well, because you don't have this torrent of water coming in during those massive rain events. Depending on how you articulate it, Wellington Water say it's 9/10 of the solution in terms of discharge events. There's also renewals. There were renewals that were happening as part of us working with the government on the three waters now abandoned by the current government to do wastewater pipe renewals. More will need to be done in that space as well. The cumulative impact of all of those things does have an impact. I want us to just remember that. And that councillors have said that, it's about effectiveness of one tactic or another, or one piece of work or another. Actually, this all combines to do something important. But 9/10 ain't the whole way. We're always going to have points of failure from an engineering perspective. I'm no engineer, but I'm also mindful that the reason why cars have gotten safer over the many decades is that you create a point of failure. That's why those pump stations fail, because they're at least a known point of failure, so you can mitigate it. But that said, we will not also be in a position to accept that as being acceptable anymore. And we know that because we're already now going through this rather, personally, if I reflect here, truncated process of trying to get a network-wide overflow consent organised. I'll reiterate to you what I said to Kathleen a few days ago. Ngāti Tō, my message to you is this: make sure in your deliberations with Wellington Water that these pump stations are given the highest priority with regards to improvements under that consent. Three Waters reform was supposed to save us. Well, not save us, but help us. Let's go that way. Imperfect as it was. Well, we've been screwed. We've had to dial back because of the two tight Tories. I have grave concerns of the ability of Wellington Water to provide timely and accurate estimates that enable me to trust them in the discharge of their work. In the workshops at the start of this process for the LTP, I reinforced that while we were talking about reprioritisation of these projects, the concerns I had around wastewater assets. This should not be a surprise that we're having this conversation here. So we can't wait for the network consent to be finally put in place so that we would have a legal reason, a legal compulsion to act upon improvements. We can move ahead of that, and this amendment does that for one location. Yesterday, there was an email. 5 minutes is up, yeah. I've got 2 points and I'm done. Yesterday, we get an email notifying of a penstock failure at that pump station. If you could not think of a better time to demonstrate the inadequacy of that hardware, That email confirmed it for me. Titahi Bay is my performance measure. There are many, but that is definitely one. The welfare of the moana, the whenua, and the tangata. Passing this amendment doesn't solve all of our problems as a city, let alone in the Bay. But if the city prides itself on showcasing the Bay, and Ngāti Toa, then the obvious thing to do is to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. Kia ora.
Councillor Trillin, I'll allow you to speak again because you made a partial comment at the start.
Thank you. I'm really struggling with this. I'm very, very sympathetic to the views that we've heard today. I've got a lot of respect for the work that you've done on this, Kathleen, the way that you've workshopped this, tried to find some wording that is workable, and I think it's come a long way and it's looking good. My problem and my concern, and this has been alluded to by some other councillors, is will this actually fix the problem? And what I don't have a clear understanding of, and what I hope some officers can speak to, is let's say we do this, let's say we go ahead with it. What is the actual impact going to be on reducing overflows and reducing the severity of overflows when they do happen?
Officers?
I think, as the Chief Executive mentioned earlier on, it took us a long time to get the situation to this point, and it's going to take us a long time to get out. I think you're right, Count. This is not a silver bullet that's going to fix Titahi Bay. There are multiple points that we need to address, including the pipes, the pump station, the treatment plant itself. And there's also impacts at the landfill from what happens at the wastewater treatment plant. So this won't be unhelpful in terms of diminishing the number of overflows, but there is no magic, and it won't 100% solve the problem.
So and further to that, it won't be unhelpful, but how helpful will it be? And I guess what I want to avoid here is the potentially perverse outcome of, we're not talking about more funding, we're talking about reprioritisation. Where is that going to come from? Is it going to come from our wastewater spending currently? If so, that means pipes. And that means that actually maybe we're spending less money on the root cause of the problem as opposed to this particular pump station. Maybe it's going to come out of stormwater, which we've already massively slashed, that we're not going ahead with improvements for protecting people's homes in places like Plimmerton, in places like Titahi Bay that we know are flood prone, and Cannons Creek that we know is flood prone as well. We're not doing enough work there. Is it going to come out of our potable water, which already we're seeing significant leaks in, and I think we all agree is the single most important thing for us to invest in? I want us to be crystal clear about what we're voting for here. Because if we do go ahead with this and we're saying we're going to do it within the next 3 years, something is going to be pushed back. And if that's going to be wastewater, which is, I think, the only place it can come from, reprioritisation, is that reduced investment in pipes actually perversely going to make this problem worse as opposed to better? That's my concern. I'd love if officers could speak to that concern.
Can I just say, we can't be crystal clear. You don't have engineers in the room to advise you on that. Wellington Water has consistently advised that pipe upgrades are a better investment than pump stations, but pump stations do need to be renewed. So this isn't a bad thing, is it? That I don't think there's anybody here who can hand on heart say, you know, is it the very best spend of money? But it won't hurt, and it will help a bit, as Mike has already alluded to. So, the confidence that you want to get, I don't think there's anybody in this room who can give it to you. And actually, Wellington Water would have to do quite a bit of work to go, here is the exact benefit of this investment versus that investment. I think we would be slightly making it up if we...
And just speaking to that's my exact concern. I just don't have enough certainty around what exactly we are voting for and what's going to miss out as a result of this. We've already cut down so much. It would actually be, in a funny way, the conversation I would be more open to, which I suspect others around this table wouldn't be open to, is increasing that overall envelope of funding. I would actually be more comfortable with having that discussion than a reprioritisation discussion. Personally, I understand that that's not a view shared around the council table. But I think overall I'm going to say I support the intent behind this amendment. I really, really do. I'm really thankful for the community coming and talking to us today and for Kathleen doing the work on this so we can have the discussion. I personally am not satisfied that this is actually going to achieve the outcome we are looking for. I'm concerned about the potential perverse outcome of it making it worse by reducing spending on pipes, and I regretfully am not going to be able to vote in support of this amendment.
Thank you for that, Josh. I think, and this is not my comment, you asked a question in there of officers of what is going to be reprioritised, and do we have enough information to make a judgment on that at this stage? If this were to go ahead, which is you can see what the amendment says. It says we're going to do it in the next 3 years, which is a moot point anyway, given Wellington Water's resources. However, can I just start? I'm just following on from your question, which I don't think was answered, Josh.
So can I highly qualify this advice, please?
No, absolutely.
So Wellington Water is actually watching this debate, and our messaging me as we're going. The one place that we would look to if this were passed would be sludge handling. There is funding in the LTP to improve sludge handling at the wastewater treatment plant itself. Of course, the trade-off there is that, as we have right now, there is some risk around that we might have issues at the wastewater treatment plant. So that's the kind of level of trade-off that we're talking about. I can't work miracles, right? So there has to be a trade-off somewhere, but that's the obvious place that we would look in order not to have to compromise on renewal of pipes themselves.
Sorry, could you just elaborate a little bit further? What is the potential implication of reduced spending around sludge handling? And I ask that because if we can receive an assurance that this amendment would not result in reduced investment in pipes, if we had that assurance, I could then support this amendment.
So the risk, and again, I just want to kind of highly qualify this guy. I can't give you an indication of the extent of the risk, but the risk is that we have sludge management issues at the treatment plant, similar to what we had in March and April this year. We have too much sludge in the clarifiers.
And at the landfill as well? And
there are
odour problems?
There are knock-on impacts at the landfill as well, that's right. That is the risk, but in terms of the likelihood of that risk, I'm not in a position to give you advice on that.
So I think just further to that, if we believe that there is it will be focused around reprioritisation from there, and that it's a risk but a manageable risk, and this won't result in reduction to pipe spending, in that case I can support this amendment. Thank you for clarifying that.
So can I just clarify, Mike? So I didn't say it was a manageable risk. In doing this, we are accepting a level of risk, right? I just want to be really clear about that. So I just want to be really clear that, so that was my point, right? I can't give you crystal clear guarantee that that risk won't realise.
So sorry, and to better clarify, if that risk does realise, what does that look like?
If it does realise, it looks like it looked in April, where we have sludge discharge from the treatment plant.
All right. I'm going to allow a question from Mayor Baker and Councillor Hayward.
I just wanted to confirm, this is not consented work yet. So
no.
How long is that actually going to take? Is this going to be like in year 3 and they're still coming in every year because we're going to wait for 3 years? Or is this likely to get done within a year? I know I'm putting it on pressure on you, but, we've got annual plan next year as well. So it's like, is the timetable if we bring this forward, the consent? Yeah. Sorry.
Right now.
So Mayor Baker, we haven't done that work yet, but typically with these things, they take at least a year to consent.
Okay, and then
A year to consent?
So we're talking at least 2 years before
year's
we
planning,
actually
yeah.
get this fixed.
No, it'll be longer than that.
Thank you.
Councillor Hayward?
To assist Councillor Trillan, because I think that his vote may be dependent on this piece of information, I'll ask a question of officers. Notwithstanding that any discharge is regrettable, a discharge because of sludge mismanagement produces a discharge that of partially treated effluent, whereas if there is a rainwater event when the pump station cannot handle the volume, it will discharge full untreated effluent into the bay. Can I have confirmation on that?
I can confirm that, yep.
Okay, so I'm going to finally have my say. I haven't had my say, thank you very much. I just want to make it clear, I'm still, what we've heard from everyone, and I support the intent of what is going on here, like others have. I reflect on what you've said, Josh. I absolutely agree with you, and I have exactly the same concerns as you and others around the table. For me, and I'm just reflecting on what one of the contributors said, it's not personal, it's business, all right? And where I come from, I think it's incredibly unwise to predetermine Rukatani Point as the key intervention that we need to make on the network. I think good asset management demands that we carry out an analysis of the whole of the network in terms of pump stations and pipes, all right? And what we're now doing is agreeing to, we're determining that this is the solution, and there's no guarantee that this is the solution, and we know damn well it won't be, all right? So there are likely to be more cost-effective alternatives as well, which will contribute towards lessening the problem over time. I believe that because of that, I'll just say this last one, and then we're going to have a break before we make a decision, all right? And you can come back, all right? Because we're 2 hours, all right? So I'm not convinced that I've heard anything. I'm worried about the risks of sludge. I don't want, and I don't see any other way anywhere else where we're going to take money from and make this happen. I don't believe it will happen in 3 years. We know damn well what happens to projects. We've got no assurance from Wellington Water that this project can be done in 3 years. And yet here we are saying 3 years here, all right? I'm really uncomfortable about this, because I think, as I've said to you, that it's not personal, it's about business. If you're going to make intelligent decisions around asset management planning, then you have to take advice, all right? And to have to take advice, you need comparisons. So we're not doing this here. We are being influenced by a whole number of factors and not logic, necessarily. While I accept cultural and other values, absolutely. But as a councillor, I'm a councillor for the whole of Porirua, and I'm really uncomfortable with this, and I'll be voting against the amendment. Now I'd like to move that the meeting is set for longer than 2 hours. I'd like to move that we extend the meeting for longer than 2 hours. Thank you, Councillor Hayward. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. So I'm going to continue with the meeting, don't worry. So I've had my say. Kathleen, yes, do you want to make some final comments? Final comments you want to
Oh,
make?
yes, I definitely want to make final comment.
Okay.
And then
to speak to that?
you maybe write it down for me. Before final comments. He wants to just say a final, Councillor Trelaw.
I'm wondering, sorry, if because of the advice that we heard before, if it would be possible for us to amend G in this amendment to specify that particular work as being the reprioritisation.
No, I'm not going to.
So we have a. You don't want to do that?
No.
Okay, all right. That's just what I wanted to check.
Cool. Sorry. So thank you. I just want to talk to a few of the points that I heard. In terms of the sludge handling, I understood that wasn't funded in the first 3 years. So is that new? Have we got funding available for the sludge handling now? Could officers please confirm that?
There is.
Anything?
Oh, actually, I asked Jim to speak to it.
Excuse me. Through the chair, there's $25 million allocated by Wellington Water in our budget. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head which year it falls in. And invite Graham if you could advise, come to the table, and if you've got that number handy. I also know that there's obviously some high level of uncertainty around the scale of that number, whether it's sufficient.
Through the chair, no, I don't have that exact information with me now, but I can get it and come back and report back if that's possible. Or
Can I ask a supplementary to it? Does that mean then, officers, if we bring that money forward into the next 3 years, that will be a rates increase? Yes.
Sorry, through the chair, I can actually answer that question now. So just looking at the numbers in front of me, there is 23 of that 25 million is spent in the first 3 years.
Okay,
is allocated for the first 3 years.
So that's new then compared to what was, and this is why I wanted the program of works that are of Wellington Water, what they have lined up, because all I could go off was the workshop that they presented to us on the 30th of November, and they had their proposal of what they wanted from us, and I believe officers had asked them to cut it back to 50 million for the first 3 years, or 50 and 60 and 60, something like that. So my understanding was that the sludge had come off, had been deferred, but now you're saying it's 25 million in the first 3 years.
So our share of that, because it's a JV obviously, is basically it's funded over a 4 year period, over the first 4 years,
right? And
most of that, 90% of that, is within the first 3 years.
Now there was 2 projects for the sludge, I believe. One was the drying, and one was the handling. Is that have I got that right? 2 different projects.
Yeah, quite right, Councillor. The first one is around the actual internal workings of the wastewater treatment plant itself to try and avoid the sorts of issues that we're having. And the second was what happens with the biosolids once we're finished with it. We have, I think it's 10 tonnes a day of wet sludge that we have to dispose at the landfill. This is what Wellington City is doing at the moment with their big machine that's going to turn that into granules. So we have a piece of work investigating what we would do, what we might be able to do here in Porirua for that. But that's just an investigation. That's not the capital investment for that.
Okay, but just so I haven't misunderstood this, that 25 million over the first 3 years is investigating.
No. So that's for fixing up the guts of the wastewater treatment plant itself.
Right.
The second piece is an investigation to what we might do, and Wellington Water is doing this work to basically turn our sludge into crystals. I'm simplifying here, but basically that's the second piece of work.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's they've put that back on the table. So I had talked to, and I'm surprised no one actually brought it up, about the odour treatment as being an option, and the water. It seemed like more of a common sense approach to take it off that rather than the sludge handling, because the effects of that treatment, I think, the odour treatment, as I said, it's in a very isolated area. There are a few properties that are affected by it, and 8 million did seem excessive for odour treatment at a treatment plant where no one really smells it, except for what I saw in the summer. In the summer, they get medium to mild smells from the odour survey I was reading.
Yeah,
3 in the morning.
Councillor, unfortunately, odour control is likely to be a condition of resource consent, so we don't have a lot of wiggle room. I can't talk in detail about the 8 million, but I can certainly ask Good Wellington Water to give us more detail on that if you like.
I think that would be wise, and to speak to regional council as well, and what actually what are we required to do? Are we going above what we're required to do? 'Cause
We're not going above what we're required to do, and we have to do it by, I think it's August next year. So there's a time frame that is in the consent that we have to abide by.
So it's a condition of consent.
And forgive me here, but we are non-compliant a lot. We were non-compliant yesterday. So, and I did talk to regional council and asked, what's the implications? And I was told you might get a fine. The fine, they said, was $250. So this is just info that I've been looking into, just to give some context.
We don't, by rule, knowingly breach any consent or law. So
I just think it's worth communicating or negotiating with regional council and seeing if there's room within that, or to sharpen up the price. Anyways, that was one option, and the other one I mentioned was water meters. Now, I do recall last year I was online, but the meeting happened here, and it was about reprioritisation, and $16 million was reprioritised to that Waitangiroa link road. I know it's not in the plan now, but that happened. Councillor Ford and we spoke about, well, what's getting bumped off the list, and we didn't get an answer. So I feel quite confident, I guess, well, maybe that's too strong of a word, that the officers will come back with some kind of solution to the reprioritisation. In terms of Rukutane Point being a priority, and I do acknowledge that there are heaps of pump stations and areas in our city that overflow, and the areas that were mentioned and Parramatta it's obviously we'd want that to be fixed. Financially, we can't. It's 30 million, but this one at Rukutane Point, we can. There's a window for us to address it, and as people have said, as the public have said, we don't want the beach to turn into what the harbour is. So it's not saying the harbour's not important, but we have this window to make sure that the beach doesn't turn into the harbour. So that's why I feel like it is a priority, as well as all of the concerns that we heard from the public about how it affects them, and the fact that it is one of the highest used beaches in our city, used all year round because people surf there. And I know surfers, they don't care if it's cold. They don't care if it's raining. I've seen them out there in the rain from my window. Was there anything else I wanted to talk to? The Mayor mentioned that there will be open and closed signs at the beach. What we're looking for with this work is that those signs won't be necessary, because it will stop the overflows. And I would like officers to give a little clarity, because my amendment is saying that the work is to stop the overflows, and I assumed that would include pipes to the actual pump station, the whole package of works to fix the issue at the bay, at Titahi Bay, to stop the pump station from flowing out to the sea?
Apologies, Councillor. The advice I've been giving you is specifically around the pump station itself. It hasn't been. I haven't been talking about the pipes as well.
No, but everybody else was talking about the pipes. So, like, it won't be, if the pump station gets fixed, it doesn't matter because the pipes aren't being addressed. But I assume the pipes that go to that, especially that long stretch of pipe along the beach, would also be included in this package of work for the pump station.
I wouldn't assume that, Councillor Philo.
So are you saying that the pipe network that connects to the pump station, if that's not fixed, we'll continue to have this problem?
So the advice I've been giving you has been specifically around the machine that is the pump station in the well that goes next to it. The pipes themselves, I've been describing as a separate piece of investment that needs to happen. I agree with you that they both need to be addressed, right? But all of the advice I've been giving you is about the pump station itself as an asset.
We had a member of the public here who's a geotechnician speak about his work with Wellington Water and about how specifically he has seen, I'm not sure if it's underground storage to hold, so there isn't an overflow. I'm assuming that will be looked into, the whole upgrade, and we'll get another, updating of pricing.
Excuse me, but look, we have an asset management plan which talks about storage on the network at a macro level. It doesn't talk about storage at a micro level like this. You're talking about increasing the scope of the project hugely.
I'm talking about stopping the sewage going into the beach. So,
It still
how are we going to
involves an
address
increase in
that?
scope.
Sorry?
It involves an increase in scope, by the sound of it.
Yes.
We need to be clear about what it is we're voting on here.
Well, point E, I think, is what I just said before. We need to stop the sewage going out. And we need to do that by upgrading the necessary work at the pump station to do that, and the pipes that go along with it.
None of the advice we've given you includes the pipes, unfortunately. That would, I imagine, be tens of millions, but I'm kind of guessing at that point. So this is only, the advice we have been giving you is about the pump station.
Okay, so when everybody was talking about the pipes, what was that about? General points, okay. But I imagine we still have money set aside for pipes anyways. That's still in our budget. So that would be...
It is an upgrade to the pump station.
That's primarily
that we're talking
that's
about.
What people have asked for.
But
and that's what I've asked for.
what is being raised here is that, as has been brought up by others, that will this solve the problem? And it seems to me that the answer is probably not entirely.
Well, we don't know. We haven't had any kind of report back from...
Well, there's no
anybody.
upgrading of pipes or anything downstream from Rukutani pump station that has been part of the advice that we've received, as I understand it. Is that correct?
As part of the advice today, that is correct. Yeah, we had separate discussions about White House, the sewer at White House. We've had those in the joint venture committee meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe so long as this is about, we've done work today to address the issue that members of the public have come to speak to, and we've made it clear that it's a priority to address, and I guess the program of works will fall out of that, and as time progresses, in the appropriate time frame, obviously. Yeah.
Well, sorry, what do you mean by that? The appropriate time frame you've specified
within
under
3
F,
years.
3 years.
Yeah.
And you have specified funding the upgrade to Rukutani Point Pump Station. Not anything else?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay. So you've had your say, and I made your points well, Kathleen, I think, and councillors have made their points around the table. I think it's now time to put this amendment to the vote. I'm going to ask...
Point of order, could we have a division for this, please?
Certainly.
Oh, yes. I'll do.
Yep, the Chief Executive. So I'm going to ask for all those in favour.
I'll
sorry.
read them out.
All right.
Councillor Ford, Mayor Baker, Councillor Hayward, Councillor Waddle, Councillor Duncan, Councillor Wehapi, Councillor Ngalo, Councillor Trelin, Councillor Filo, Taku. Not councillor. And against? Councillor
I'm against the amendment, yeah? Too many unknowns. What? Right. So I declare the amendment, or do you have to include, carried by 10 votes to 1 against. We're now break for 15 minutes. reconvene on still on item 7.2. We'll now move to the second signalled amendment from Councillor Trillin. Jeez. I'll read this one as well. I need my glasses. So this is to follow, it'll have to be, is this the, you've updated it, and we'll follow your successful amendment, Kathleen, so that the new recommendation is being suggested, agree to fully fund Winera to Onipoto Shared Pathway Project by allocating a further 14.3 million over what is currently in the draft LTP to be paid through an increase in rates across the first 3 years of the long-term plan. Note that if Waka Kotahi agree to fund their share of the forecast 20.7 million construction, that only an additional 3.1 million will be required to be funded by rates over what is currently the draft LTP. And note that the full additional $14.3 million in recommendation, is that correct? 5D? 5I? Yep. Yes, 5I is not required due to Waka Kotahi agreeing to fund their share of the forecast 20.7 million construction. That proposed rates rises can be adjusted downwards as appropriate through the mechanism of the 2025 annual plan. Is that correct, Josh? Okay, I'm moving, you're moving, seconded by you, Jeff. Would you like to speak to your amendment, Josh?
Thank you very much, Chair. And I think on this, I will actually begin by speaking to my general comments around the LTP process, which provides the context for why I've introduced this amendment. This has been a very difficult long-term plan. It makes the last one appear very straightforward. As we all know, high interest rates and inflation have made it very difficult to deliver just the projects we had already planned for, let alone anything new. I think the context for this, it's very important for us to reflect on and be clear about the fact that our job has been made significantly more difficult by the short-sighted policies of the new government. In particular, the decision to cancel the much-needed water reforms and the clear indication that they have given that transport projects that include things like walking and cycling are to be deprioritised and defunded. This is clearly evidenced by the difficulty every council in the country is currently experiencing. If it wasn't for the deeply cynical, dog-whistling, anti-Māori campaign run by the new government, by those parties when they were in opposition in order to oppose the water reform proposal, we would be in a much better place right now, and much better place to address the critical issues that we are facing, such as harbour health. My biggest frustration on this is that the need for urgent infrastructure investment means that we have not been able to make the much needed investment in climate resilience and climate mitigation projects. This is a key driver in the amendment I've signalled, which I will be bringing shortly. First though, general reflections on the positives of this LTP. I've been very happy with our engagement process. I was very heartened by the increase in engagement from our previous long-term plan, and in particular, I was very impressed and motivated by the submitters and supporters to Kiwanui, who clearly demonstrated the strong community support for their project being properly funded as a signature cultural event for our city. I also have confidence in the robust prioritisation process that we went through, trimming down and restructuring our capital program to get the best possible bang for buck in a very difficult fiscal environment. I strongly support as well the proposals that we have on the table around waste management. The problems that we currently have, both with compliance around correct use of recycling bins and with fly tipping, show that the current model is demonstrably unfit for purpose. And I have confidence that our proposal will hit all three key criteria of improving our recycling system, reducing waste around the city, and saving our residents money. So there's a lot of positive to reflect on. But as I indicated before, the key thing that I feel that we failed to do as a result of the situation we're in, not through poor decision making, but through poor circumstance, is significant investment in climate resilience and adaptation. That leads me to the proposal that I'm bringing forward today around this particular amendment. I won't speak through all of it as the chair already has, so I'll jump straight through to my rationale. I believe that the Wenera to Onopoto shared pathway is a rare example of an infrastructure project that provides extensive co-benefits across all 4 of Council's strategic priorities. We're all in agreement that in a time of cost pressure, we should be carefully considering every line of spending. So projects that simultaneously benefit all of our key priorities should be strongly prioritised in order to get the best bang for buck. In particular, I want to touch on a couple of specific reasons. Project aligns with all 4 of our priorities. Number 1, harbour health. The resilience component of this project will reduce silt and sediment and other runoff from entering the harbour, improving its health in the long term, and encouraging and enabling alternatives to cars for transport will reduce as well a lot of the minerals, things like zinc and copper coming from vehicle brake pads and tyres from getting into the harbour. For a low carbon city, we know that by far our most significant source of emissions within Porirua is private motor vehicle use. And if we're committed to being a low carbon city, as we say we are in our strategic priorities, we need to proactively address the challenges of climate change. It is critical that we provide suitable infrastructure for those who wish to use alternative means of transport. This isn't about taking options away from people, it's about providing more options for people so that they can make decisions that are best for them and their whānau. Thriving and safe communities. This pathway will better connect Titahi Bay to the rest of the city and provide a cost-efficient way for our residents to travel, and in particular linking into the 4th strategic priority around our tamariki and rangatahi at the heart of our city. This will be critical for young people being able to walk to school, being able to do so safely, not have to be driven by their parents. It saves parents time, it's good for children's independence as well. These are all co-benefits that all feed into why this is so important. A couple of other things very quickly outside of the strategic priorities. There is demonstrably a strong desire in our city for this, as demonstrated through the submission process. We know this is a project that's been talked about for a very, very long time. Every time we talk about it, it's more expensive. If we say no to this today, we'll keep talking about it. We'll talk about it next year. We'll talk about it the year after. Every time costs will go up. Ultimately, ratepayers are going to pay for it. And actually, the cheapest way to roll this out is to do it now. It's the cheapest that it's ever going to be. Finally, deprioritisation of this project by the government makes it that much more important that council leads. And I think the submissions we received from the public on this, to my mind, were very convincing. Different governments will come and go, will prioritise different things, but our responsibility is to our community. We know that the current policies of this government are going to result in car dependence being further entrenched. So we have a responsibility to step into the breach and provide for our community projects such as this one that do have extensive co-benefits. Those are my initial comments for now. I'm happy to sum back up at the end, but for now I'd like to see what others think.
Thanks, Councillor Trond. Comments by councillors, questions? Mayor Baker first.
Before I comment on it, what is the rate increase, please, per year? What was it, 2% per year? So you were looking at 19.5 this year then? Is that what you're saying?
That was my understanding. I'm happy to be corrected by the
Can we
Chief
just have
Executive.
that confirmed by...
Yes, it's approximately 2% a year over 3 years, so an accumulative 6% if it was fully funded by council without wakatai subsidy.
Okay. Thank you, Josh. I can't agree to an extra 2% per year. If I was going to do that, I'd be putting that into my infrastructure. I agree the pathway is needed. I want to make sure we get the road done first, the road and shoring up the bank, which will help the harbour. I can't lose Waka Kotahi funding at 52 cents in the dollar. We cannot afford that as a council for a shared pathway and a cycleway. And I sit on the roading committee, and it is looking like we won't get funding for cycle and pathways through this new government. So that's where I'm coming from. I think the infrastructure for me, I agree, everyone wants it, but not when the government or the Waka Kotahi is picking up the extra money. So I can't commit to funding that now at an extra 2% on top of our 17.5 when people are struggling. I would rather put that into infrastructure pipes. So as much as I want to do it, If I knew that Waka Kotahi would fund it, it would be a different story, but I can't support this one, sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Ford?
Similar to the Mayor, I just wanted clarification. So currently in our draft LTP, we've got 13.5, but it's, the project itself was going to be that, which assumes 7.1 million from...
So currently in the LTP, sorry, through the chair, currently in the LTP we've got 13.5 million.
Yep.
We need an additional 14.3 million based on forecasted costs at this point. And yes, which makes up basically the additional 20 odd million that we need to complete this work.
Right.
Obviously we've spent funds on design work already.
And that's only forecasted?
I'd probably defer to Mike here because I think the design's quite advanced, but I don't know where they've got to in terms of, they haven't gone to procurement at this point.
No, so it's quite a good number. We've got finished design and we have quantities of ours checked, so we'd say 90% certainty around the costs here.
Right. And then we're not... Sorry, I just want to know, when do we get an indication from, well, a certain indication from Waka Kotahi whether funding will come through for that particular stretch?
It's August, September.
September.
Oh, after.
September, is it? Yeah.
Okay. I'll leave the questions for now, thanks.
Councillor Philo.
It was just another question as well. So I'm just clarification. So if we agree to this amendment, is what you were saying, Mayor Baker, that Waka Kotahi, if they think that we're going to fund it in our LTP, they won't give us the funding? Is that what you meant by we can't lose Waka Kotahi funding?
No, that wasn't what I was saying. We don't know if they're going to fund it because this new government has different rules around funding, which is not to cycleways and pathways.
Right.
Yeah, it looks likely that there will be less funding available through Waka Kotahi for these types of projects. Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, look, I've been a staunch supporter of the cycleway since first getting voted in, and at $3 million it was a good deal at the time. And it promised to be the gateway to Titahi Bay, making it really something special. But at $24 million and 2% increase on rates, that's just a bridge too far. The cynical thing for me to do is to support you, Josh, on this, but I just can't. It's times like this you have to show real leadership, forget the party politics sniping, and show real empathy with your ratepayers. And that means putting aside nice-to-haves and focusing on getting the necessary done and keeping things affordable. You put a lot of effort into highlighting the pluses as you see them, all the while completely ignoring affordability. And you talked of the impression that submitters and support of this left on you, but I reflect on the submission from the Karihana Bay woman who came in here in tears because her house is regularly flooded. We can't do anything to help her either. It's affordability. People are already struggling to cover the 17.5% increase we're proposing, and adding more to this is just a bridge too far for me, so I won't be supporting that.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Waddle.
Just a question. The coastal resilience portion of this project, is that included in this budget that we're talking to here, or is that now a separate item?
Included.
It's included. Can it be separated out?
Yes, it can.
Yes, but there are consenting, and Ngāti Toa has a view on that as well.
Yep.
To you, Mr. Chair, I do have some issues and around the rating increase that's going to be attached to this. And you're dead right, Mike, this has been on the table for many, many years. At $3 million, it's a steal. And but there's another component to that. The further we wait, the more we wait, the dearer it's going to be when we actually turn the corner and say, let's get into this. I mean, I certainly agree in principle that we've been waiting a long time for this, and the benefit for kids, going to school, going to college, is going to be tremendous. If it can be broken into two parts around the coastal resilience stuff, yeah, but I think the rate increase for me is going to be a bit too much, mate. Yeah.
Any other councillors? Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora mātua upoko, me he kai kanahiga anō. I seconded this motion because I think it was important to have this debate. And I appreciate the feedback from others. And no one around this table should be left with any doubts that this is not a decision that is cost-free. That's what prudent decision-making, it's our legal requirement to do so, defines. I looked up recently the number of stories that have been written in the kapi mana, hello members of the press, about this project that has gone on for years and years and years. It's like a tennis game. I don't know if you know this, but the longest tennis match in history was 11 hours and 5 minutes, and it was held over 3 days. This thing's been going on for well over a decade. We are getting fatigued by having to recommit to a project that should have been done some time ago. For all the travails and so forth that happened in getting to this point, to lose focus now would be, I think, deleterious to the commitment that we have made to providing help to a community that is connected by a single road. I saw in the, as that point about the cost, $3 million, there's an article here, Virginia Fallon, October 2017. Kapi mana, Porirua City Council scraps 1.7 million harbourside cycle path due to erosion. It was 1.7 then, and we bounced it out. And in the next LTP, which I happen to be a part of, we had certainty around that pathway and also certainty by underwriting if other external sources of funding were not available. I also think Taku's comments, I do go back to Submitter 299, Ngāti Toa. I'm going to read their quote just so we got this clear here. The work relating to resilience, including coastal vegetation and seagrass restoration along the Weneta to Kahotea shoreline, is critical. This project is about that. This is the only road. That said, our funding does cover the resilience components that are already in place. That's not for debate here. And we had Graham Bathgate, who was here talking earlier on, supporting the previous amendment. And he's involved with the Grand Traverse. And he has talked to me personally on this on more than one occasion about the importance, not just to to the event, the Grand Traverse, but also just as a Titahi Bay resident. I reflect on his views on this when I make this decision. We can vote this down. This can go down in flames today if you want it. But in August and September, we're going to come right back to this issue again. And inevitably, we are going to have another conversation about whether or not we fund this in the next annual plan or not. And it may be even more prudent to have that decision at this point in time. But as I was reflecting, just writing my notes, it's one of those moments where I don't always agree with Councillor Ewan Morrell, but just get the bloody thing done. Kia ora.
Councillor Wehapi.
Thank you. I'm just going to apply a kind of common sense approach to this. Well, could be common sense, could be sarcasm. You guys can take it any way you like. I am all for the coastal erosion work.
Should be more of it.
Sorry. Add context to it to be completed. Over the last few years, and I can tell you, I have always sat here and said that I don't support the shared pathway. Because when you think about it, you can still walk down it, you can still cycle on it, you can still get in and you can still get out. If I wanted to pay an extra 4% on my rates, and I'm a ratepayer as well, Porirua, 6%, I would rather that go on pipe renewal, pump station upgrades. That is where I'm just applying my logical whatever to is, and so I'm sorry, Josh, I can't support this. I mean, it's not like you can't walk or cycle on it already. That's all I've got to say about that.
Councillor Waddle.
Just a question, and then I'll follow up with my comment. If we were to fund it fully, would it still be realised within the first year of this LTP, regarding the current issues we've got with consent and the land court currently?
It's construction's over 3 years.
Yes.
So would it start within year one of the LTP? Do we have certainty that the 2% rate increase, if we did it this year?
In the draft LTP, we've the numbers actually are reflected in the first 2 years, but we expect it to be done over 3 years because of the complexity. But as Mike said, the design is quite advanced, so the full effect of it won't happen until in the latter part of that 3 years. So it'll be progressive. Whichever way you look at it, it's a 6% cumulative increase over 3 years.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is that, do we necessarily need the 2% next year, on this this first year of the LTP, when we've got year 2 and year 3, which are substantially lower than 17.5%. That's just my thinking on it. I'll go on to my comment around it. Look, I am going to take a leaf out of Councillor Wehapi's book and declare that if I win Lotto this weekend, I would happily fund the Winera to Onipoto pathway. So it's, but joking aside, well, hopefully I'm not joking and I can share some wealth with the city. I taking the emotion out of this and the I guess the angst around this has been going on far too long. We've kicked it down the road, keep kicking it down the road for years and years, and it predates my time on council, and it probably predates most people's time around this council table. Taking the emotion out of it and thinking about business logic, as Councillor Leggett alluded to in the previous amendment, I don't think I can support this, because we really need to put it into our infrastructure. I would have been far more comfortable to put it into the pipes and the pump station in the previous amendment. It's a tough time out there. It's not getting any easier. As we know, the cost of this is not going to get any cheaper as it is now. But I think with already a 17.5% rate increase on the books, we can't go further back than that. I would hate to add any more to it, so I unfortunately cannot support this.
Mayor Baker, I'll let you ask another question. You can...
Sorry, just one question. We're getting a report on this in August, and we will know about Kotahi money. Can we make this decision in the annual plan? Like, obviously, everyone wants it to happen, but not to hit this funding rate.
It is a matter for the annual plan, in effect. So we've got a placeholder amount in there. We're doing the design right now. We're looking at the ability to, how we separate the resilience from the... so we want to be able to put all those options to you in September when we get the Waka Kotahi. So we've got a fully formed view. But any adjustment would go into the annual plan.
Okay, I'm happy with what I've said then, Josh, and I'll wait for the annual plan.
Councillor Philo?
There's a couple more questions. So the annual plan, are you talking about like 1 July 2024, this one coming up? Or do you mean next year?
Well, 1 July 2024 is the LTP. The next annual plan starts on 1 July 2025, and we basically do deliberations at this time next year. But that, so we start building the budget this side of Christmas. For that, you'll have workshops on a whole variety of things. Won't be hopefully quite as giant as the long-term plan, but there's always changes over the year.
And you mentioned sort of singling out the erosion, the road erosion, and the harbour house, the harbour restoration. So is it more the cycle part that is not likely to get funded. Is that what we're thinking? And the other, sorry?
The issue around, the issue around funding from Waka Kotahi is around cycleways and walkways.
Yeah.
So the government's changed the GPS, the government policy statement, and those are now not priorities. Roads of national significance are. This happens every time there's a change of government. We get changed priorities in our transport funding, and so it flows through to what they will fund for us. So that's the funding that we're referring to.
Were they going to fund, obviously they would be funding the road erosion, but were they also going to fund the harbour side, or was that coming from us? You know, the restoration part.
I think so. Under the previous government, yes, they were going to part fund the whole project, including the co-benefits. That's what's changed in the GPS, though. So we oriented this project around the cycleway walkway because that was the settings at the time. Yeah. We're now thinking, actually, that resilience might be how we reorient our thinking from here on in. So depending on what happens with the GPS in September, you know, we've got some thinking to do around how we might actually better access government funding. Now, what we've done with this project, we've done the design. We're doing the tender documents now. So we're just about ready to push the button whenever a funding option comes available. So it'll be, if you like, dare I say, shovel ready when the time comes. So we're watching very closely. We can't make any promises, of course, but we're good to go if some funding does come online.
Oh, okay. Supplementary. The 14.3 million that's in the current LTP. Is that including Waka Kotahi funding and rates money, or is it just pure, is that 14.3 million rates money?
Through the chair, I'll answer that question. It's not 14.3 million, sorry. It's not 14.3 million.
13.5.
It's 13.5.
Yeah.
So, pardon me, so our share of that, council's share of that would be about 47%, which would be 6.3 million. Does that help,
Yep.
Councillor Phelan?
That answers my question. Thank you. Cool.
Thank you. I'll allow another question from...
Just clarification, so Waka Kotahi don't cover resilience of that piece of road then?
Good question.
So...
does it qualify as a capital work?
The issue with Waka Kotahi and resilience is they'll only fund stuff after it's broken, not before it's broken. Obviously, clearly there's some issues with that, but that's the issue we have at the moment.
Yeah, but it is broken at the moment, isn't it? Like there are slips all along it.
Actually, it's not when you look at the definition of broken for Waka Kotahi.
Road's still there. Any other comments, councillors? Right, I'm going to make a comment. Thank you for bringing it forward, Josh, because I think it's good that we've had this conversation. And obviously that conversation will continue because the issue of resilience is still unanswered and whether we can go ahead with the whole project. However, where I come from is the same as Mike, and that's about affordability. I cannot believe that we are even contemplating adding 2%, 2% and 2% to rates, whatever that timing is. The feedback that I and the rest of you have had going out and about in this long-term plan process has been that affordability is a huge issue and probably the biggest issue. People want things done, but many people don't recognise that we have to pay for it at the same time. There's a cost to getting things done. And while this is a nice-to-have project, that's what I see it as. I think we've got to face realities. And as such, I won't be voting for this amendment. So any other comments, final comments before we go? Josh, you're allowed a sum up or...
Yeah, I just wanted to say that...
You're not Josh, but I'll let you...
I just wanted to give my final comment.
Your final comment, go on.
My comment, actually, because I only ask questions. So this is this is a tough one for me too, because I know you can cycle down there, but I've cycled down there and it's really crap. Like it's not, and who knows what it will be like if and when it's done. I agree that it does have all those, it covers all the priorities, harbour, health, road erosion, and obviously the active, cycleways and what all the benefits that comes from. I'm not comfortable with, the amount of money that has been spoken about. Rates increase are already pretty high. I am going to go with what was suggested or implied around waiting for the annual plan to sort of hash it out there and see where we're sitting with the funding.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. You want a final say, Josh?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, everyone that's contributed to this conversation. A lot of good points well made that I completely accept, and I don't begrudge councillors that feel that they can't vote for this because of the fiscal environment that we're in. It is what it is. I completely understand that. There are a few things that I do want to speak to in saying that. There was a point around affordability being a huge issue, and there was the implication that I hadn't considered affordability. I assure you I very much have, and this is something that I've thought about very intensely. And when I think about affordability, I think about both the cost in the next year and the following year and the current term that we're in. But I also think about the long-term affordability and the costs to our community and the amount of costs that we wear today because we, in previous councils, haven't made decisions with that in mind necessarily in the past. And I think part of affordability is about investing in the future. And on that topic, it's been framed by a couple of councillors here that this is a project that is a nice to have. And I want to gently but firmly push back on that and around how we characterise projects that are nice to have. Traditionally, council seems to view must-have projects as being roads for driving on and pipes. And then we underinvest in those anyways. But those are the main things that are the must-haves, and everything else is a nice to have. And I simply don't accept that. We have a responsibility around social infrastructure in our community. We have a responsibility around the future of our community, planning for our children, planning for next generations, protecting the environment, focusing on climate. All of that is a core responsibility of council. And if we're characterising projects that are nice to have versus must-haves, my contention would be that a project that meets all four of our purported strategic priorities would be the definition of a must-have project. I challenge any councillor around this table to name any other project that we've talked about in this LTP that so fully encompasses all four of our key strategic priorities. I can't think of one. So I do completely get the arguments. The comments Councillor Weehapi made around things like investing in pipes, I don't disagree with your perspective. We need to be investing more in there as well, absolutely, and it's something that I really struggled around. The comment that you made, Councillor Duncan, around Karihana Bay, that was something I really struggled with as well. And ultimately, we know that came down to the fact that we could invest as much as we wanted and probably only help out 6 houses, compared to a project that would have an impact on an entire community. So this is a tough decision, and I understand the balance of priorities, but I think if we're talking about leadership, I reject the notion that brave leadership in this situation is kicking the can down the road again. Every dollar that we don't spend now, we're pushing onto future generations. To my mind, brave leadership is saying, actually, we have a vision for our community. It's one that our community supports. There's a specific project here that our community has told us that they want to deliver, and we have the opportunity to plough ahead with that project despite the fact that central government is looking to pull funding. That's brave leadership, and that's what I'm standing up for here today. So I completely understand the points that councillors have made. I don't begrudge them. But I do believe that if we are talking about the genuine long-term benefit of our city, that this is something that we should be looking to prioritise. However I can count, I see where the numbers are sitting at the moment. I understand what's happening here. I look forward to having this exact same discussion again 12 months from now, when costs have gone up again and we've delayed work by a year because we haven't gone ahead with it. And I'll be sure to bring that up again and remind councillors that the best time to do this is now, the second best time is next year, and I suspect we'll be talking about it again at the election after that. Kia ora.
Thanks, Josh. Do you want to have a... Go on.
Have you ever been to Titahi Bay?
Sorry, we can't. We have a... No. So,
Point of order.
Councillor Duncan, would you like the opportunity to withdraw that? I think that's entirely
No,
inappropriate.
because I asked that because there is already a footnote.
I didn't hear it, and I don't want to hear it, obviously. So can we just drop it, take it outside? Yep, I want to go to a vote. So
Division is requested. Thank you. Point of order.
All right. So let's put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Councillor Hayward, Councillor Trelin, Councillor Philo. You two.
Thank you. All those against?
Is it you?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Councillor Leggett, Councillor Ford, Mayor Baker, Councillor Waddle, Councillor Duncan, Councillor Weehappy, Councillor Ngalo, and Tapu Pārai.
Right. I declare... in a second I will. Somebody's counting. He hasn't got enough fingers. Oh, no, that's all right. Got it? So I declare the motion lost, and the vote is 3 for and 8 against. Thank you, councillors, and thank you for the hearty discussion. So what that brings us to now, I'll ask, even though you've made some comments on the general, this 7.2, the deliberations, are there any other points that councillors want to make or discussion? So we'll have Councillor Weehappy, Councillor Hayward and Mayor Baker.
Thank you. This is in regards to attachment 1, their summary of I just wanted to actually thank the staff for their incredible energy around the engagement level of this LTP. The videos were just an amazing way to engage both our Māori and our Pacific community. So I think that's actually the best add-on that we can actually, be really, really proud of as a council. I actually wanted to give a personal shout out to Shona for getting all 200 video submissions ready for us. That's a big, big job. So I just wanted to say just a huge thank you. Awesome mahi to our staff for that.
Thank you, Councillor Weehappy. Well said. All right, Councillor Hayward.
Mine was a question, but it's on the same thing. Can officers perhaps give some commentary on what lessons in terms of other non-LTP related and annual plan related engagement has this these new tactics informed? Can we see a similar approach with other consultations that we go with the public?
Through you, Chair, I'll hand over to Mia to answer that question.
Through the Chair. Yes, we've certainly learnt a lot of lessons. There were a lot of positives in video submissions, as Councillor Weehappy mentioned. However, we will be looking at the process in general. Councillor Weehappy shouted out to Shona, that was a policy advisor in my team who was processing some of these submissions. So we have a lessons learnt register from video submissions, but that being said, we would like to continue to do them given the change in demographics that we received through those video submissions. In addition, my team is looking at how we bring through an engagement framework, bringing together some of the work done by Mangaroa and the Pacific Strategy. So we'll be working on that and come back to council in due course once we've had a bit of a holiday, maybe.
Yeah, take 3 weeks leave. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
1.
Sorry, Chief Executive. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you for the response, and appreciate that there's more work to be done in terms of that engagement. In a similar vein, with regards to lowering the barriers to entry when it comes to participating in this process, which I think video submissions has helped to remove one important barrier, would this review that you're looking at also look at the role with our those with accessibility and disability, direct lived experience of accessibility and disability challenges moving forward in terms of our engagement as part of our public consultations?
Through the chair, this work will bring together all of the feedback received from all stakeholders across the community, so absolutely we'll consider that group as well.
All right. Mayor Baker?
Thank you. Yeah, and a big thank you to the staff. I just want to acknowledge our Karihana people who did come in and speak. I know it's tough, and I want to acknowledge the village planning people who came in. That's been another one. You know, village planning has been awesome in my time at council. I do think we've probably reached the end, but there is another way forward, and I'm sure something will happen around that, even though we're not budgeting anything. Discussion from councillors. I've thought long and hard about the rubbish recycling that we put out. Personally, I wasn't particularly happy with what we put out. I don't think it was very straightforward. I think we were looking at fortnightly pickups rather than weekly, and I don't think the information was very good. I think there's a lot of work to do on that, and we'll probably have to reconsult. So I wasn't happy with that, even though we've pushed it out for 3 years. We're just going to have to reconsult on it. So I'll still vote for it, even though I'm not happy with what's in there, because I know it's going to have to come back and change. And the figures in there won't be right, because we know everything goes up every year. So I'm just signalling that needs work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. Are there any other Councillor Filo?
I just have a question of clarification. With the village planning, is it still in the plan but just with no budget as the residents requested?
It's not on the budget. It's not there. We don't put line items in that have no budget that we don't plan to put in. So, no, it's not on the budget.
No, but it doesn't stop, as Mayor Baker says, us considering what an alternative might be in the future, and I think that's very important for us to think about that very closely. Are there any other? Good. In that case, I'm going to put the substantive motion, which was in 7.2, and the amendment which was agreed, which was your amendment, Councillor Filo. So if you can, I'm not going to read it all out again because I've read it out twice. It might have changed. Oh, Jack, you didn't change anything, did you? No. I think... What? Just to keep us on our toes, yeah. All right, so I'm now going to put the motion, the substantive and the amendment. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. You wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, I'm just looking.
It's too late, but you can.
I know. Just through the chair, I'm just looking. Is that 2829.A? Right. So I just want to. There is a mistake in that paper. Ooh. Curbside recycling was not pushed out. It's the organics that was.
Yes.
So that should be 2728. That I just want to confirm that with
point of order.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we can correct that when it comes to council. Thank you, and thank you for pointing that out. All right. Okay. So we've completed 7.2. Let's go to item 7.3, which is the requests for support. Now, thank you. All right. I'm not sure whether we need to. We've had a bit of a briefing on it, but I'll ask councillors whether they have any comments or questions. And Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora, matu upoko anō. He pātai. I just wanted to double check. with regards to Partners Porirua, did they have a request and what was the recommendation around that? Because it's not incorporated into these documents.
They didn't have a request in, but they have a contract for funding, which we're proposing to change.
Thank you.
answers
Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Councillor Trillin and then Councillor Philo. Oh, okay, Councillor Trillin.
Yeah, just wanted to really quickly reflect on this, fully support this paper. I think that it's been dealt with really well in the recommendations by officers, and I wanted to thank again everyone who came in to submit. We've spoken already about Te Kiwanui's submission that I think was really impressive and an example to any community group about the way you can rally and engage with council. I wanted to, I wanted to acknowledge as well in particular, I'm very happy that we're continuing to fund to the level requested the Citizens Advice Bureau, which provides critical services that actually in an ideal world are actually something that I personally think council itself should actually be delivering. And in the absence of that, Citizens Advice Bureau does excellent work, and I'm really glad that we do support it. I support the other ones as well, which we're going ahead with, and I just wanted to speak to those that we're saying no to. Again, I thought the submissions on these were really good, and it was unfortunate. I would have loved to have been able to support the basketball funding and Te Heranga Waka as well. But I think the discussions that we have had, the feedback we've got from our community is that things like these in the environment we're in are just a little bit of a bridge too far in that constrained fiscal environment. And so I support the approach here, and will be voting in favour of this.
Thank you, Councillor Tron. Mayor Baker and then Councillor Ford.
Thank you. Yes, I fully support this. And it just shows what a community can do to get something across the line. So our Pacific team partnered up, and you did really well to get these across the line. Everything else in here that we've agreed to fund is what runs a city. We need to have these things. People may say, oh, you need to knock out funding, but actually we need to be a city as well as just as pipes and roading. So I'm really pleased we've done these. Really hard to decline the capital basketball, but it was just a push too far, obviously, with everything that they needed. But I think this is a good decision for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. So, Councillor Ford.
100% what my colleagues have said as well. Fully support all the recommendations around the funding that is going to go out to the communities that came in. I did just have a question or comment possibly around the decline of the funding to capital zone basketball. In their scoping document, I think they made reference to the 8 million that we've put aside in the east for a hub, and wondered if officers would be having that, or maybe I'm tagging that. Maybe that could be a discussion with them when the time is appropriate.
We can certainly discuss that because, as you know, there's no design as such for that. To be honest, though, we hadn't considered it would be a court facility, which would add substantially to the cost. But look, it's an open book, and it's a placeholder amount anyway. So yes.
That's it. Yep, Councillor, we happy.
Thank you. Yeah, fully 100% support this paper. I just note here it does say that our officers will follow up with the trust and look at other ways of providing support. It would be really good to get an update kind of on the communication between that, just at a time when it's appropriate, please.
Thank you. Anyone else, councillors, got a... I mean, I'm sure we're all of the same opinion as those that have spoken, and I'm not going to add to that. I think this is great work. We do need to keep supporting the community. So I'm now going to put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. So that brings us to the end of this meeting. I just want to, before we move into public excluded, I just want to thank councillors and officers and members of the public for their contributions to this meeting. As people have reflected, this has been the most difficult LTP. This has been very difficult, and I don't see it getting any easier in the future. But thank you again for your contributions. It's been a good discussion, and without rancour as well. So, and we accept the outcomes. So well done for participating in the democratic process. So on that, I'm going to move a motion to go into public excluded, seconded by Councillor Duncan. All those in favour? Thank you. Can I ask those who are not participating to leave?